Chapter 758. Third Uncle, I seem to have messed up. The young chieftain slowly raised his head. His face was filled with regret and fear that couldn't be concealed. Third Uncle was slightly startled. It was obvious that he didn't expect his nephew, who was once arrogant, would actually take the initiative to admit his mistake one day. Thump! Third Uncle's heart abruptly sank. This wasn't a good sign. Gulp! Third Uncle gently swallowed a mouthful of saliva and probed. Child, your pincers couldn't have been severed by that mysterious demon king overseeing the Willow Rock Oceanic region, right? You should know what we are going to do this time. The chieftain should have also told you what it means to be on good terms with the Black Jiao to our brave crab race, right? I met the Black Water Dragon King. The young chieftain hesitated for a moment before slowly saying, furthermore, I also expressed our brave crab race's goodwill. However, the Black Water Dragon King said that our brave crab race was just a bunch of trash and didn't have the qualifications to form an alliance with the Willow Rock Oceanic region. He even ordered his subordinates to besiege me and sever my pincers. He said he had his eyes on our territory and would soon officially declare war on us. He wanted to conquer our brave crab race and make us his slaves. Now that things had come to this, it was useless to be cowardly. If he stuck his head out, he would still be stabbed. He might as well fabricate a lie to cover up his mistake. Anyway, the brave crab race's envoys didn't even officially step into the Willow Rock Oceanic region, let alone meet the Black Water Dragon King. By the time the gray-scaled flood dragon person took the initiative to declare war, they wouldn't have the chance to ask about the details. By then, both parties would have already become mortal enemies. If the brave crab race could believe his words, he still had a way out. He only needed to ask his father to bestow a fey to repair the damage caused by his pincers being severed. In the future, he would still be the young chieftain of the brave crab race, second only to one person. This third uncle's breathing became sluggish. His eyes were a little dull as he murmured, this shouldn't be the case. The patriarch said that the Black Jiao was expressing his stance. He hoped to choose a group of demonic beasts from the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas to support him. Then, he would defeat the aberrations and seize the opportunity to overthrow the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Even if the Endless Sea lost the war in the end, with our relationship with the Black Jiao, we could still gain a foothold in the Sky Martial Continent. At this point, Third Uncle suddenly came back to his senses and said sternly, Kid, did you do something to offend the Black Water Dragon King? That's why he was so angry that he cut off your pincers and even implicated the brave crab tribe. As the saying goes, no one knows a son better than his father. As the three patriarchs who had watched the young patriarch grow up, they also knew what kind of temperament this young man had. For the patriarch to be able to obtain a title and even lead the brave crab tribe to develop better and better in the Endless Sea, he must be a powerful and wise patriarch. Since he took the initiative to speak, then it couldn't be wrong. It must be that this kid didn't suppress his arrogant nature and angered the Black Water Dragon King. Now, the entire tribe would be implicated because of this. If they let this matter go like this and let them return home with their tails between their legs, announcing the news that the gray-scaled flood dragon person was about to start a war with them, not to mention this kid who ruined the plans of the brave crab tribe, even this demonic king elder wouldn't have a good ending. At the very least, he would be sent to the vanguard of the war as cannon fodder. Third Uncle, you don't believe me? The young patriarch's breathing turned sluggish, but he reacted quickly. With teary eyes, he said, I didn't do anything to anger the Black Jiao. It's all because that Black Jiao needs a stepping stone to establish the illustrious reputation of the gray-scaled flood dragon person. We just happened to deliver ourselves to its doorstep. That's why it targeted us. Speaking until here, the young patriarch's tone was already filled with grief and indignation. He roared, Fine, if you don't believe me, then I won't return to the tribe. I will die here to prove my sincerity. As soon as he finished speaking, the young patriarch actually jumped up and slammed into a huge corpse nearby, as if he wanted to kill himself. Third Uncle's eyes flashed. This kid was exposed. As the most outstanding member of the brave crab tribe's new generation, the young patriarch could be said to have fulfilled all of his requests. As long as there was something he was interested in, the brave crab tribe would help him get it regardless of the cost. Usually, this young patriarch loved to read all kinds of unofficial histories made up by humans the most. This show of using death to prove one's sincerity was not unfamiliar to him. It could be seen in many similar books. It was one of the common methods humans used to prove their innocence. To humans, it was indeed not difficult to kill themselves. But what were they? They were the brave crab tribe. They were demonic beasts that were famous for their strength. In order to carry such monstrous strength, their physical strength was even more terrifying. Not only would the young patriarch not kill himself, he could even directly smash that huge rock at the bottom of the sea. After all, that was just an ordinary rock and not some precious metal mine. If the demonic beasts wanted to commit suicide, they had countless methods. Even the most simple self-explosion of the demonic core was more effective. Why would they use this kind of weak human act to deceive him? Third uncle stretched out his pincers and directly blocked in front of the young patriarch. A hint of joy flashed in the young patriarch's eyes. He thought to himself, usually, when he read those unofficial histories, the elders in the tribe always advised him not to lose his will. But today, using the strategy recorded in the books seemed to be unexpectedly useful. Kid, third uncle is not an outsider. Third uncle watched you grow up. If you continue to deceive third uncle, then I can only give up this diplomatic mission. When I return to the tribe, I will report the details of this diplomatic mission to your father, including you leaving the diplomatic mission in advance to go to the Lucier Sea area. Now, you are acting in front of me, trying to cover up your wrong behavior. I will give you one last chance. If you tell third uncle the truth, third uncle can help you think of a way to repair our relationship with the Lucier Sea area. If you don't want to, then we will go home now. No matter how your father wants to punish you, don't expect third uncle to plead for you. After third uncle finished speaking, he retracted his pincers. His face was full of disappointment. It seemed that he was quite disappointed with his nephew's behavior of treating him as an outsider to deceive him. Third uncle, I did make a mistake. I just feel that you and father think too highly of the Lucier Sea area. It's just a mere gray-scaled flood dragon person. It's already not bad to receive the goodwill of our brave crab tribe. Don't even talk about forming an alliance with us. No, it can't even be considered an alliance. Father's intention is to have us become the Black Jiao's subordinates and listen to the Black Jiao's commands. Seeing that his third uncle who watched him grow up had already exposed him, the young patriarch no longer had the intention to continue pretending. Chapter 759. That's why you want to prove yourself and use the brave crab tribe's influence to suppress the gray-scaled flood dragon person. You hope that this group of sea fiend tribe that you think is weak will submit to you. That way, when you go back and report to your father will definitely treat you differently. Not only will he stabilize your status as the successor of the brave crab tribe, he will also reward you, right? A cold glint flashed past third uncle's eyes, but he did not explode. Instead, he asked, "That is indeed what I am thinking." Since he had already said that, there was no point in continuing the act. The young tribe leader said calmly, "Third uncle, do you know what that Black Jiao asked me when it saw me? It asked me how to address it. Forget about me, a demonic beast that has not even reached the demonic king realm. Even if it was you, third uncle, how would you answer it?" At this point, an ambitious expression appeared on the young tribe leader's face. He said solemnly, "What I want to inherit is not only the brave crab tribe, I also want to inherit my father's title. When my father dies of old age, I will be the new Taio." You. Third uncle looked at the young tribe leader dumbfoundedly. He did not know what to say for a moment. The humans in the Sky Martial Continent, even if their lives were worthless, all had their own names. In the outer seas that were not under the jurisdiction of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, as long as the demonic beasts were from a powerful tribe, they would also have their own names. But in the deep sea that was under the jurisdiction of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, as long as the demonic beasts did not have a publicly recognized battle record to obtain the title bestowed by the Dragon Palace, if the demonic beasts dared to name themselves or their descendants, they would all be labeled as traitors. The best outcome was to be exiled to the outer seas, or be imprisoned in the underwater prison forever, or even be killed on the spot. Not having a name was not only the young tribe leader's obsession. Even he, a demonic king, did not have a name. Lin Yuan's previous question had indeed deeply hurt these Dragon Palace subordinates. Third uncle, help me this once. A mere gray-scaled flood dragon person is nothing to our brave crab tribe. To us, there is no possibility of losing this war. Let's go back now. You can cooperate with me and say that the Black Jiao has no intention of forming an alliance with us and wants to use us as a stepping stone for the gray-scaled flood dragon person to establish his might. As long as you say it, Father will definitely believe it. In the future, when I inherit the position of team leader, you will be the Grand Elder. I guarantee that second uncle's position will definitely be inferior to yours. Furthermore, apart from this matter, I can also guarantee that a portion of the spirit items bestowed by my father will be given to your children without affecting my cultivation. The young patriarch's eyes were filled with eagerness, as if he was certain that his third uncle would accept his conditions. Alas, third uncle sighed softly. He looked at the young patriarch as if he was looking at a corpse. Third uncle, what is the meaning of your gaze? Seeing that his third uncle's expression was not right, the young patriarch suddenly panicked. What a pity. Your father was the most outstanding one among us brothers back then. Therefore, when father gave the position of patriarch to him, not only did second brother and I not feel jealous, we even felt that it was very normal. For so many years, countless opportunities were placed in front of second brother and me, but we did not cross that line. This is because we are very clear that the brave crab tribe is the incomparably powerful brave crab tribe in your father's hands. In our hands, it is merely a Dragon Palace tribe that is content to stay in a corner. Later on, with you juniors, I have to admit that boss is stronger than us in all aspects, even when it comes to giving birth to children. As the most outstanding one among the new generation of brave crab tribe, if nothing unexpected happens, you will inherit your father's position and continue to lead the brave crab tribe. Us old fellows will also guide our own juniors and assist you in the future. Before we die, we will also pave the path for you and send you into the Demon King realm, allowing you to obtain your own title. But unfortunately, from today's perspective, you, the most outstanding junior, is nothing more than this. Perhaps it is because we have protected you too well all these years. You don't even know the immensity of heaven and earth. Third uncle suddenly made a move and slapped the young patriarch with his pincer. He said with a cold face, "What kind of existence is the Black Water Dragon King? Even your father has to be careful to show his goodwill. If it wasn't for him personally going to the front line of the Dragon Palace to see if the aberrant is as terrifying as the Black Water Dragon King said, you and I wouldn't even have a turn to go on this diplomatic mission." Father, it's impossible. You are lying to me. Father is invincible. He is the strongest warrior of the brave crab tribe. He will not bow to any demon beast. The young patriarch seemed to have been overthrown in his heart for many years. He lay on the ground with no intention of getting up. He just shouted hysterically and tried to refute, but he couldn't come up with any evidence. He could only emphasize that his father was a warrior. The conditions you proposed just now are indeed very tempting. I don't want to replace your father in this life and sit on the patriarch's throne. But after so many years, second brother has always been above me. I am indeed unconvinced. As for your cultivation resources, I am indeed envious. Your father has high hopes for you. He is willing to find an excuse to reward you with almost all the good things. If I can get the resources in your hands, even if it is just a little bit, my child won't be stuck at the peak of the wisdom state and can't be inferior to the river lord state for more than 10 years. Your father has given you a lot of resources, but second brother and I have no objections. We have seen more demon beasts in our lives than we have eaten food. We are very clear that whether a tribe is strong or not never depends on the number of experts in the tribe, but on the realm of the strongest expert in the tribe. Do you know why the brave crab tribe can develop to today's stage? Because of your father's existence. All the nearby sea demon tribes know how terrifying your father is. Once they attack the brave crab tribe, it means that they have to face your father's anger. Because of this, we also hope that you can become an expert on par with your father. When we can no longer fight for the tribe, you can continue to protect the tribe. Third uncle gently shook his head and sighed. It's still the same words. What a pity. You won't have such treatment in the future because of the mistake you made today. Now, you should pay for your mistake. Speaking until here, third uncle silently took 2 steps back and turned his head to look in the direction of the diplomatic group. You all heard what it said just now. What are you still standing there for? Tie this tie this criminal up and bring him along. I want to use its blood to wash away the anger of the Black Water Dragon King to ensure that my brave crab tribe won't attract a calamity of extinction. Chapter 760. Third uncle, you can't do this. If my father finds out, the young patriarch's face was ashen as he tried to make a final struggle. At least 80% of the brave crab tribe's battle power was based on their huge pincers, and the remaining 20% was their hard shell that could ignore most attacks of the same level. Now that they had lost their pincers, they only had defensive power, but no offensive means. They couldn't even deal with a brave crab of the same level, let alone their third uncle, who was in the Demon King realm. Therefore, the young patriarch was very calm. He didn't explode because of anger and fear. Instead, he showed a calmer attitude than before to deal with his third uncle. In front of a Demon King, he was nothing. The only one who could persuade his third uncle to change his mind was his father, who loved him dearly. If your father finds out, he will personally kill you, you unfilial son. The third uncle waved his huge pincers and said coldly, your father isn't just your father. He is the respected patriarch of the entire brave crab tribe. You have made a big mistake that can bring destruction to the tribe. No matter how much he loves you, he will make a choice that is beneficial to the tribe. However, your father will be in pain. In order to avoid this pain, let your third uncle be the bad guy. Having said that, he returned to the envoy group. Without looking at his tied-up nephew, he ordered the entire group to speed up. However, he sighed deeply in his heart. Because of this brat's recklessness, the brave crab tribe was really used as a stepping stone this time. Moreover, they couldn't resist. They could only smile and take this slap. Willow Rock Sea Region, Blackwater Dragon King's temporary residence. Without the knowledge of the brave crab uncle and nephew, Cyrus and Lin Yuan were quietly watching a light screen that was broadcasting images and sounds. This was a little trick that came with the operation of the Eye of God. Lin Yuan had used it when he was at the northern frontier. However, the young patriarch of the brave crab tribe didn't expect Lin Yuan to have such a terrifying perception. After he put in enough demon power, he could observe everything around him in detail and broadcast it through special means even if he didn't leave the house. Wonderful! Cyrus sat beside Lin Yuan with excitement written all over his face and said in a meaningful tone, in the face of a situation that would decide the survival of our race, he instantly broke free from the shackles of kinship and made the right choice. This demon king of the brave crab race can be considered a ruthless character. That patriarch who made it willing to submit to him is probably even more powerful, right? At this point, it turned its head and looked at the expressionless Lin Yuan beside it. It asked doubtfully, to be honest, even if the gray-scaled flood dragon person has the mentality of perishing together with the brave crab tribe, it's no different from striking a rock with an egg. You also rejected the young clan leader's goodwill so decisively, and even ordered Flood Dragon 1 to prepare for battle. Aren't you worried about losing it all? Will I lose? Lin Yuan turned his head, looked at Cyrus, and asked faintly. However, there wasn't much doubt in Lin Yuan's tone. It was as if he was stating something that was within his expectations and questioning Cyrus' intelligence. It won't happen. Cyrus looked as if it had swallowed a fly as it said with a pale face. The brave crab race's patriarch is willing to put down his pride and befriend you. Not only is it to leave a way out in the event that the Endless Sea is defeated, but it's also because he can see that you will become an important figure in the Endless Sea sooner or later. Previously, he relied on your wings to ensure that the brave crab race wouldn't be wiped out because of this. Who knows, he might be able to take another step forward and become a huge race that can rule over many sea regions. After pausing for a moment, he continued, also, their third elder, he would rather abandon his family and detain his nephew, whom he once thought highly of, to apologize to you. Clearly, he is a smart person and has a clear understanding of their patriarch's intentions. Although I haven't met that second elder yet, I can guess that the brave crab tribe might look down on the grayscale flood dragon person, but they have a heart of reverence towards you. Therefore, they will do their best to express their goodwill towards you. This unequal war actually couldn't be fought in the first place. Only that burly young patriarch couldn't tell, and actually planned to prepare for war. Good fellow, good fellow. Cyrus looked at the expressionless Lin Yuan and had doubts in its heart. For example, Lin Yuan clearly knew that the gray-scaled flood dragon person wasn't a match for the brave crab race, but he resolutely rejected the young clan leader's friendly gesture and said that he wanted to start a war. Moreover, he really ordered Flood Dragon 1 to prepare for battle and then closely monitored the young clan leader. It was as if things didn't go according to his expectations, this war would really start. However, Lin Yuan didn't have the slightest hint of panic on his face. It was as if the brave crab race was nothing more than this. As a wise man known as the virtuoso, Cyrus rarely admitted that it was inferior to others in terms of intelligence. However, this time, facing Lin Yuan's scheming, Cyrus only felt fear and trepidation. This Black Jiao seemed to be indifferent, but he still held the absolute initiative. It was as if nothing would go wrong. As long as he was willing, things would develop according to his expectations. And that was indeed the case. The brave crab race's friendly gesture was an unexpected situation. If it was the gray-scaled flood dragon person who handled it, it might be a little softer. As long as it could obtain the support of the brave crab race, the gray-scaled flood dragon person would sooner or later stabilize his position as the overlord of the Willowstone waters. It wasn't impossible for both sides to work together and advance further. However, what about Lin Yuan? His attitude was firm, yet he managed to accomplish this matter. He pushed the brave crab race, who had already lowered their stance, into an even lower stance. More importantly, Lin Yuan's attitude and the gray-scaled flood dragon person's reaction would definitely spread. It wouldn't take long for the nearby sea demon clans to know that the brave crab race's young clan leader had his pincers cut off because he provoked the Blackwater Dragon King. After that, the brave crab race's third elder personally bound the young clan leader to apologize. After signing a series of treaties, the brave crab race was practically reduced to a vassal of the gray-scaled flood dragon person. This was a form of demonstration. Even the brave crab race, which had 3 demon kings overseeing it, lowered their heads in front of the Blackwater Dragon King. As for the other sea demon clans that only had 1 demon king, or even none, who would dare to have any ideas about the Willowstone waters? Other than these weak sea demon clans, even the stronger sea demon clans would obviously soften their attitude towards the gray-scaled flood dragon person in the future. After all, they took the initiative to express their goodwill to Lin Yuan or to attack and occupy the territory of the Willowstone waters. They were all fighting for the benefits of their sea demon clans. If they didn't obtain any benefits and even got themselves into trouble, then they would really be crying without tears. From today onwards, the gray-scaled flood dragon person clan could be considered to have been established in the Endless Sea. Chapter 761. I'm tired. I'm going to rest now. You know how to deal with the brave crab tribe's diplomatic mission, right? Lin Yuan glanced at Cyrus from the corner of his eyes and asked calmly. He was not an omniscient and omnipotent existence after all. When it came to calculating the general direction, he had accumulated all sorts of experiences from his predecessors during the information explosion in his previous life. He was confident that he would not lose to anyone or mystical beast. However, when it came to manipulating people's hearts, he was indeed not as good as Cyrus, the master of fate. Only when Cyrus made contact with the brave crab tribe's diplomatic mission could he maximize the benefits of this scheme. I know what to do. This time, I'll definitely make the brave crab tribe sign an unfair treaty and make them feel smug about it. Cyrus nodded heavily and replied proudly. However, in its heart, it sucked in a deep breath of cold air. Black Jiao, is this also part of your plan? Aren't you a little too amazing? The young chief had already told third uncle about his meeting with Lin Yuan. In terms of time, Lin Yuan could not have suddenly left the Willow Rock waters. Therefore, if he was willing to negotiate, Lin Yuan would personally make contact with the Brave Crab Tribe's diplomatic mission. However, if the Black Jiao did not show up, the Brave Crab Tribe's diplomatic mission would probably start to have doubts. In addition to the gray-scaled flood dragon people outside who were preparing for war and seemed to want to fight to the death with the Brave Crab Tribe, the third elder, who was praised by Cyrus, would probably be flustered. When that time came, Cyrus would have more room to make demands. Moreover, the entire Brave Crab Tribe's upper echelons were inclined to rely on Lin Yuan's wings. As long as the possibility of being on good terms with Lin Yuan was not low, they would definitely not give up. Moreover, they would not give up on thinking in a moment of anger and really go back to prepare for war with the gray-scaled flood dragon people. War was not a fun thing to do. Simply put, all wars were for the sake of fighting for benefits. Large amounts of resources and lives were burned in order to plunder more resources and land for survival. If the expected benefits were not achieved, all wars were just stupid actions. Previously, Lin Yuan had taught the first flood dragon that the king should not be angry and send troops to war. Only an idiot would fight a war without any benefits. What's more, once a war broke out between the two sides, it wasn't that the Brave Crab Tribe couldn't get the expected benefits at all, but that they were cutting off their own path of survival. At the cost of completely offending Lin Yuan, as well as other speculators who might rely on Lin Yuan in the future, they obtained the remnant slope land of the Willowstone Sea that had experienced 2 consecutive wars in a short period of time, as well as the greedy eyes of the surrounding sea demon tribes. What do you mean by maximizing benefits? This was called maximizing benefits. Black Water Dragon King is awesome. Broken sound. Lin Yuan glanced at Cyrus, who suddenly became excited for some reason, and shook his head helplessly. It was rare for him to pay attention to Cyrus' self-improvement behavior. He twisted his body and walked to the backyard to recover his demonic energy. After all, maintaining the large-scale Eye of the God consumed a lot of demonic energy. If he wanted to expand the surveillance area, it would not be a passive skill that had no consumption. On the other side, Shenwu Dynasty, Central Plains, Sky Demon Army Granary. A Sky Demon soldier yawned and leaned against the gate listlessly. He rolled his dead fish eyes and glanced at the surrounding forest shrouded in darkness. After confirming that there were no abnormalities, he actually crossed his arms in front of his chest and leaned against the gate to take a nap. He even let out light snoring sounds. Zhao Guangchong, who was hiding in the forest without showing his head, frowned slightly. He made a few gestures to the messenger, who was also hiding beside him. The messenger immediately understood and imitated the chirping of birds in the forest to convey Zhao Guangchong's orders to the troops hiding in the surroundings. To put it simply, Zhao Guangchong, who had rushed all the way here, did not care whether he would be discovered or not. After all, those who participated in this mission to attack the granary were all men of sacrifice. Once they confirmed that the granary was real, they would burn all the food here, even if it meant sacrificing their lives. If this was not the granary, then they would have attracted the Sky Demon assassins and would not have the protection of the lurkers. It could be said that they would definitely die. However, looking at the situation here, it was completely different from what Zhao Guangchong expected. Not to mention the ambush. Even the guards inside and outside the granary were quite lax. It was as if they did not know that Zhao Guangchong and the others had set out. Therefore, Zhao Guangchong used his own judgment to inform the surrounding troops that this might not be the real granary. They would feign an attack and then scatter and retreat. Whether or not they could return to the northern frontier alive would depend on their own methods. From this granary to the source of Wei River, they would have to go through the inspection of Zhang Xiuzhu and the others. This process could not be described as long, but it was indeed abnormally dangerous. Most of the troops would not even be able to reach the source of Wei River alive. Cuckoo? Cuckoo! The chirping of birds sounded in the forest again. This was the response of his companions. Zhao Guanchong thought for a moment, and then made a few more hand gestures. The messenger replied according to his intentions. His companions were asking if there was still a need to attack fiercely, since this was not the real granary. After all, from the speed at which the invisible sky demon transmitted information, as soon as they appeared, they would attract the sky demon assassins. Retreating earlier would still allow them to complete the mission, and their chances of survival would also be higher. Zhao Guanchong's response was to attack with all their might and break through the line of defense here. Although from the attitude of these guards, there was a 90% chance that this was not the granary. People's physiques could not be lumped together, let alone the sky demon, who was of a different race from them. With the invisible sky demon transmitting information, it was reasonable for the guards to be lax. As long as they did not receive any information from their companions, it meant that no one would attack this place. And according to the time of the attack, unless Zhao Guanchong did not care about whether he was exposed or not and directly attacked this place on the main road, it was impossible for him to arrive at this time. However, once Zhao Guanchong was discovered on the main road and was discovered, the invisible sky demon would immediately report back. Just in case, it was better to charge in and take a look. Sky demon, hand over your life. After passing down the order, Zhao Guanchong once again displayed the characteristics of a boorish man. Aura Qi erupted from his body, and the aura of a Heaven Star Border Realm Level 2 surged out. He brandished his halberd and rushed out of the dense forest. Just as he reached the open area, he threw the halberd in his hand and nailed the sleeping sky demon to the gate of the stronghold. What followed was close combat and street fighting. Long weapons were not convenient, but the saber at his waist was more useful. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! Damn it, come out and form a line of defense for me. Compared to the Black Water Army warriors who rushed out of the dense forest one after another, the sky demon side was clearly much more chaotic. Chapter 762. Zhao Guanchong's speed soared to the limit as he burst out with all his strength, leaving behind long afterimages with every movement. Zhao Guanchong rushed to the entrance of the granary almost as soon as he finished speaking. He raised his sword and chopped down two sky demon soldiers who were trying to push the gate open. He roared, "Charge in!" Although he felt that something was wrong, now was not the time to care about those details. One by one, the Black Water Army soldiers raised their weapons and charged into the granary. The sky demon soldiers were defeated almost immediately, and the situation quickly turned into a one-sided massacre. This seemed wrong, but it also seemed normal. In order to lure the experts of the northern frontier to attack the various ambush points, the sky demon side had prepared both false and true information. But there was one thing that was the same. The defenses of the various ambush points were not strong. In order to let the humans of the northern frontier see the dawn of victory in the surprise attack, the sky demon side had deliberately weakened the defenses of the various ambush points. This was originally a harmless matter, because according to the sky demon's plan, these human warriors would probably run into the assassins halfway and would not be able to reach the ambush points alive. Even if there were a few fish that escaped the net, it would not matter. A group of panicked and exhausted soldiers was more than enough to be slaughtered by the not-so-powerful garrison. But the problem was that Zhao Guanchong's group did not run into any invisible sky demon or any of the assassin squads that had been deployed in advance. The entire team arrived at the granary in peak condition. Thus, the outcome of the battle was decided. 10 minutes later, glancing at his subordinates who were using the magic sealing bottle to detain the sky demon's body, Zhao Guanchong wiped the blood from his face, revealing his still dirty and resolute facial features. Until now, he still had not figured out what the sky demon's trick was. Shouldn't this be an ambush point? Why did it now look like the sky demon was delivering his head to them? Taking 2 steps forward, Zhao Guanchong swung the long sword in his hand and cut open a gunny sack that had not yet been moved into the granary. The terrifying sword energy blasted a 3-meter deep hole in the ground. Walala! The food in the gunny sack instantly poured into the small hole and filled a corner in an instant. The food is real. Is this really the sky demon's granary? Zhao Guanchong's eyes trembled slightly as he muttered to himself in disbelief. Although the sky demon could live without his body, he would lose his influence on the material world. Thus, if he wanted to fight against the northern frontier, he had to have a physical body and take care of his body. The sky demon could not avoid topics such as food, clothing, shelter, and transportation. According to the research results of the Northern Frontier Scientific Research Department, because the soul was incompatible with the physical body, there was a high chance that the sky demon would be infected by diseases that practitioners would not be infected by. If he encountered a terminal illness, even the sky demon could only leave his body and live in the form of a spiritual body. If he wanted to live in this world, it was much more difficult for the sky demon to live with a physical body than it was for humans. Thus, although the granary here was not very important to the sky demon, it was definitely not to be underestimated. For war, there was never enough food. To feed such a large army, the amount of food consumed every day was a terrifying number. After all, although practitioners with powerful cultivation could not eat or drink, they still needed a large amount of food to accumulate strength if they wanted to unleash 100% of their combat strength. If they relied solely on the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, they would sooner or later die from weakness. There's really food? After a short rest, the Blackwater army that accompanied Zhao Guangchong pulled out their swords and cut open the gunny sacks. Seeing the large amount of food flowing out like water, their faces were filled with disbelief. Although there was no time to verify it one by one, a conservative estimate was that the amount of food they cut open was enough to feed an army of tens of millions for 3 days. There was also the food in the granary that had not been counted. In short, the sky demon side would definitely feel the pain of destroying all the food here. Set the food on fire. Let's go. Zhao Guangchong sheathed his sword and expressionlessly threw the torch that had just been lit by a Blackwater Army soldier into the granary. The rest of the Blackwater Army soldiers followed suit. They threw the torches in their hands and whatever combustible materials they could find into the granary or onto the piles of food that were piled up in the open-air square outside. Then, they sheathed their swords and quietly and orderly headed towards the jungle shrouded in darkness outside. The Northern Frontier Academy did not look at one's body or aptitude when recruiting students, only whether they had the heart to learn. As for what results they could obtain and what position they would be assigned to, that was a matter of personal ability and had nothing to do with the policies of the Northern Frontier. However, as long as they joined the academy, they would receive the full training of all the instructors of the Northern Frontier. This kind of treatment was not essential for the children of aristocratic families and sects, but it was a precious opportunity for the children of poor families. Therefore, most of the students of the Northern Frontier Academy did not come from very good backgrounds. Setting fire to so much food was an incomparably huge torture to their nature. If it was possible, they would like to transport the food from here and use it to support the various regions in the northern region. But in the end, reason prevailed over greed, and they left without any hesitation. Even though their journey had been smooth and unimpeded, and they had slaughtered the heavenly demons guarding this place without a hitch, who knew what kind of horrors would await them on their way back? Whether they could return to the northern frontier alive was still a question. Bringing so much food on the road was suicide. After the Blackwater Army had all left and the granary was wrapped in flames, Diablo slowly walked out of the dark forest. His 6 arms were crossed in front of him as he coldly looked at the burning flames in front of him. Adelaide, a cold glint flashed in Diablo's amber eyes as he softly muttered a name. A moment later, a monster wrapped in a tattered black robe floated out of the forest behind him. Only a skull with green flames could be seen. It said respectfully, "My beloved king, what's the matter? Have you prepared the things I asked you to prepare?" Diablo did not turn around. Instead, he stared at the flames in front of him and asked slowly. Some time ago, the aristocratic families tried to destroy the construction of the northern frontier with the food they bought from the demonic sect. Although the plan was thwarted by my great master, the food was not completely destroyed. With the help of my master subordinates, I found a batch of food and contaminated it with necromancy magic. The new food has the ability to infect others. When they are placed together with normal food, They will gradually infect the normal food and turn it into infected food. Chapter 763. I don't have time to listen to your nonsense. Diablo coldly interrupted Adelaide's opening speech. Adelaide bowed slightly and continued. The new epidemic food is ready. After eating the epidemic food, it's not as simple as an incurable disease. Normal people will have a high fever and be weak for 3 days after eating the epidemic food. After 3 days, they will return to normal. After that, there will be an incubation period of 7 to 15 days. When the incubation period is over, these people who eat the epidemic food will suddenly die. That's it? Diablo turned his head slightly and glanced at Adelaide from the corner of his eyes. He said in a deep voice, "You should know that these scumbags who dare to go against our great master can survive without a physical body. You poison them to death. Essentially, it is meaningless." He paused and clenched his teeth. After wasting so much time and resources, is this how you repay our great master's trust? Diablo, my revered king, I've always said that your biggest problem is your impatience. If you are willing to make a small change, our great master will trust you even more. Adelaide's skeletal face twisted into a sinister smile. During the incubation period, all living things that the carriers come in contact with will also be infected by this terrible disease and become new carriers. After the outbreak of the disease, although only the physical body will die, it is not that simple. The dead carriers will be transformed into all kinds of undead soldiers by my necromancy magic. They will madly attack all living things that they can sense, killing and transforming them. Only then did Diablo's expression lighten up a little, but it was only by a little. As a demon who was proficient in all kinds of necromancy magic, Diablo knew very well what necromancy magic was. These newborn undead soldiers were not enough to deal a destructive blow to the Sky Demon Army. Their biggest use was to annoy the Sky Demon Army. Your eyes are making me shiver, my revered king. Adelaide laughed with a weird voice and said in a deep voice, I never said that these undead creatures are my proudest ability, did I? It was the carrier of the disease that was spreading like crazy. These undead are only used to detain the Sky Demon Army and prevent them from directly attacking the northern frontier. Before that, you should first think about how to prevent the carriers who may have eaten the epidemic food from coming into contact with the subordinates of the Great Master before the outbreak of the first incubation period. This plague was ineffective against demons who were proficient in necromancy, but it was incomparably fatal to humans and the Sky Demon who possessed human bodies. Once such a plague broke out, the defensive line set up by the northern frontier would instantly become a joke. Adelaide was like a lunatic. This was the conclusion shared by Diablo and Lin Yuan. Strictly speaking, this monster that Lin Yuan named the Lich Ancestor was not a demon. It was an undead creature that hated life. When Lin Yuan created it, he said it to be proficient in all kinds of black magic and undead magic. Its personality was also a lunatic that was passionate about all kinds of strange research. It also had a little bit of hatred and disregard for life. Unknowingly, Lin Yuan had already created a lunatic that was even crazier than Cyrus. At the very least, Cyrus did a series of evil things to leave a big bad name in history. However, Adelaide was not like that. Every time it harvested lives, it was just an experiment to see if there was any possibility of improvement in one of its methods. Adelaide turned around and looked at a group of imps who were pushing carriages loaded with epidemic food. It smiled and said, I call this experiment Adelaide's gift. What do you think, my revered king? I think your horse is gone, you lunatic. You don't respect me at all, and you insist on calling me your revered king. Diablo's eyelids twitched slightly. He turned his head and was silent for a while. Then he said in a deep voice, I think it's very good. Come on, Adelaide. Sooner or later, you will become the right-hand man of Master. After moving some Sky Demon corpses that were prepared in advance and covering the carriages with epidemic food, Adelaide stretched out its bony fingers and rubbed its chin. After a full 5 minutes, it nodded and said to the imps who were constantly changing the movement of the corpses, Very good. It's like a scene where you were trying to save the food but were attacked by human troops. Put down the corpses and hide. When the sky demon comes, you will make some noise and quickly escape. Pretend that you can't handle the food in time. Understand? Even the lowest level imps that could only be used as coolies were not existences that the invisible sky demon could fight against. Therefore, the ones who discovered this place could only be celestial demon warriors with physical bodies. When they transported this batch of food away, they would know what Adelaide's gift was. 7 days later, a sky demon soldier who was standing guard suddenly squatted down. A large amount of sweat was constantly secreting from the pores all over his body. His chest was violently moving up and down, and he was panting like a broken bellows. Look, this is the fragile body of a human. This unlucky guy was seriously ill a few days ago. It was not easy to cure him, but now he's sick again. A patrolling sky demon laughed and squatted beside the sick sky demon soldier. He mocked, "Why are you guarding this body like it's a treasure? If I were you, I would have given up my body and gone to the front line to investigate the situation." Recently, the invisible sky demon at the front line would always mysteriously disappear. Therefore, more and more sky demon soldiers were unwilling to give up their bodies and go to the front line to investigate the situation at the northern frontier. They would rather guard their fragile bodies and stay in the military tents than do the kind of work that could disappear at any time. Because of this, the higher-ups had lost their temper countless times. Small team leaders like him were given a hard order to send some invisible sky demon soldiers to support the front line. However, no matter how much he persuaded, it was useless. If this continued, he would be stripped of all his privileges and be sent to the front line to participate in the direct battle. Therefore, he was in a very bad mood. Whenever he saw the sky demon soldiers who would rather guard their sick bodies than give up their bodies, he could not help but mock them. However, this time, he did not realize that danger was quietly approaching. The sick sky demon squatted on the ground. His breathing was gradually calming down, but his eyes that were once black and white were gradually turning blood red. Chapter 764. Roar! A beast-like roar came from the mouth of the sick sky demon. The mocking sky demon didn't even have time to react before he was thrown to the ground by a huge force. Immediately after, a black shadow quickly pounced on him, opened its mouth, and crazily bit at his flesh. Intense pain hit him like a tidal wave. No way, right? I was just saying a few words. Save me. Save me. Feeling a large amount of his life force drain away, the mocking sky demon reached out his hand to the patrol team that came with him and screamed for help. Wounds caused by sharp teeth appeared, and a large amount of blood flowed out, almost dyeing the ground red. At this time, the patrolling sky demon, who were shocked by the sudden change, went forward to pull away the crazy sky demon that kept biting their captain. However, they realized that this crazy person's strength was ridiculously strong. 4 sky demon warriors went forward but couldn't pull him away. Instead, they were bitten by him several times. "He's crazy! Kill him!" A sky demon that was bitten changed his expression and let out a roar. He unsheathed the long sword at his waist and instantly chopped off the crazy person's head. Even so, the crazy sky demon's body spasmed on the ground for a while, showing an extremely strong life force. At this time, a sharp-eyed sky demon realized that their captain had stood up at some point. Roar! It was similar to the roar of a wild beast. They had heard it from the mouth of the crazy heavenly demon not long ago, but at this moment, this roar came from their captain. Black blood flowed out of his torn and tattered body as he staggered toward his former subordinates. The sky demon captain's eyes gradually turned dark red, and a cold, hungry, beast-like look flashed in them. The 4 sky demon patrols were slightly startled and began to retreat. The sky demon was a race with a clear hierarchy. They could kill their own kind without any psychological burden because that fellow was just like them, the most ordinary sky demon. However, the captain of this patrol team had the more noble blood of the sky demon flowing in his body. What did it mean to kill a sky demon noble? They, or even their families, were going to be killed by the heavenly demon commander. Such a scene was not unique to this place. More and more sky demon suddenly died from the plague after the 7 days of incubation. Many sky demon did not even leave their bodies until they died. They were turned into a part of the undead along with their physical bodies. If Diablo knew that his subordinates had killed a large number of invisible sky demon, causing the sky demon to value their physical bodies so much that they were unwilling to leave their bodies, and causing the sky demon side to lose a lot of men due to Adelmon's gift, who knew what kind of expression he would have. Countless undead sky demon warriors chased after even more sky demon warriors and bit them. More and more sky demon warriors joined the ranks of the normal sky demon because of the end of the incubation period or because they were infected by the undead. The entire base seemed to have turned into a living hell. On a mountain peak not far away, Adelaide was holding a pair of binoculars produced by the Ministry of Works of the Northern Frontier. He quietly observed the sky demon base where the undead plague broke out. His skeletal face squeezed out a hideous smile again. Adelaide's gift had been successfully completed. The next step of the plan was to control the undead army to attack more sky demon. The plan's codename was Calamity. What a pity! Adelaide smacked his lips and murmured, "Those damned, greedy demons will eat the invisible celestial demon as soon as they catch it. Even Diablo's order is useless. Otherwise, I would really want to find a few celestial demon spiritual bodies to study." Unfortunately, it was only a spellcaster who needed to chant incantations and borrow the power of its great master in order to cast spells. If it encountered a heavenly demon warrior who excelled at explosive speed, it would be beaten to the point where it couldn't fight back at all. Not only that, those damned demons couldn't be trusted, and the humans in the Northern Territory were unable to enter this land filled with plague and undead. Moreover, Adelaide had already asked around. Although the Northern Frontier had caught many sky demon, almost all of them had sunk into the Nether Realm's black water. After all, they did not have any other means to destroy the sky demon except for the Nether Realm's black water. Naturally, they would not give the sky demon a chance to break through the seal and wreak havoc in the rear. It seemed that he had to go back and study how to improve the combat power of spellcasters in close combat. As for the sky demon that was said to be immortal and did not need a physical body to survive, it was no different from a joke to Adelaide and Diablo. The latter saw the spiritual bodies of the sky demon as food that he could not eat, while the former was proficient in black magic and undead magic. He was a master of manipulating the mind and soul. When it came to dealing with the invisible sky demon, they could say that they were experts. A group of things that were similar to ghosts had to provoke Lin Yuan, the Nether King recognized by the will of the world. This kind of behavior was usually called courting death. Whether it was black magic or undead magic, for Lin Yuan, who had a preliminary control of the power of the Nether River, they were all things that he could use at his fingertips. After all, they were all models that could be directly copied from novels in his previous life. In essence, the only difference was the way to use the power. However, as a demon beast with a tyrannical physical body and a dragon scale armor that strengthens its defense, Lin Yuan prefers to fight with fists to the flesh, or hide directly behind the scenes and be a Black Hand level traitor. He is too lazy to use these disgusting and sinister powers. On the other side, in the Endless Sea, in the Willow Stone region. That's about it. Cyrus stood beside Lin Yuan and said with a fervent look, "The brave crab tribe is willing to announce that the Endless Sea will become a subsidiary force of our Willow Stone region. As for the other sea demon tribes around, although they have not expressed their opinions, their attitudes are quite ambiguous. It is said that the various small forces around the Willowstone region have recently been wiped out by many forces. They probably want to do us a favor." "That's normal." Lin Yuan nodded slightly and said indifferently, "The evil dragon camp has joined forces with me. In addition to the previous incident where I harmed Long Jiuzi, in the eyes of most sea demon tribes, I have an irreconcilable hatred with the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Who knows if the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas will take revenge on me? Not everyone has such decisiveness." "You mean to accept the brave crab tribe?" Cyrus was slightly stunned and looked at Lin Yuan with a puzzled face. It seemed that this was not what it had expected. Chapter 765. Lin Yuan nodded and said indifferently, "The strength of the grayscaled flood dragon person is too weak. Although it is more than enough to defend the Willowstone Sea area with you. Wanting to go one step further and obtain a bigger territory is tantamount to a fool's dream. Under such circumstances, if other sea demon clans are willing to join us, what reason do I have to reject them?" Cyrus was speechless. After pondering for a while, Cyrus smiled bitterly and said, "I understand what the Dragon King is thinking. However, the Endless Sea is still the territory of the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas. Both you and the grayscaled flood dragon person have the bloodline of the Dragon Clan. If you're willing to lower your head, advancing further is just a word from the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. On the other hand, no matter how much power you accumulate, you can't wantonly dominate the Endless Sea when you're hostile to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas." Indeed, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was not in a good state now. Outside, there were old dominators surrounding them. Inside, there were various subordinates of the Dragon Palace who wanted to rebel. The evil Dragon Camp, which was originally a spy of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, had completely broken off their relationship with the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas. Now, A.O. Siphon had even begun to command his loyal subordinates to clear out the spies that the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas had placed in the evil Dragon Camp to express his determination. Even if the Guild of Sea Demons, which was estranged from the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, and the Outer Ocean Demon beasts that had given birth to their own civilization, they were still enemies of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, but they had not completely fallen out with each other yet. However, thinking about it carefully, now that the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas had become enemies with the entire Endless Sea, did they really care about the Endless Sea demon beasts? The answer was no. Of course, this was partly due to the pride and arrogance of the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas. However, on the other hand, would the Endless Sea demon beasts that seemed to have the upper hand have the guts to start a war with the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas? Both sides could have countless small conflicts. However, when it came to a war that involved the destruction of the entire clan, both the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas and the Endless Sea demon beast tacitly stopped. Why was that? This was because the true enemies of the dragon race of the Four Seas had always been the old dominators who possessed spiritual influence. On the contrary, the beasts of the Endless Sea didn't dare to declare war on the dragon tribe of the Four Seas, because they knew what kind of enemy they were going to face. Their chance of winning this war was actually less than 30%. Thus, they could only use all kinds of small tricks to weaken the dragon tribe of the Four Seas and continuously strive for more benefits for themselves. Cyrus clearly knew who was the real master of the Endless Sea. It had never been optimistic about Lin Yuan's ability to arm wrestle with the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas. That's why the brave crab race is so terrifying. Lin Yuan's eyes narrowed slightly, and he said meaningfully, "That clan leader famed for his bravery may not be best at his own bravery." While the other speculators were still watching, he could even half-reluctantly bet all of his wealth, using the survival of his entire race to bet that I would win. Bet? Cyrus snorted and sneered. "I think you've overestimated him." This time, the young clan leader of the brave crab race has come to the Willowstone Sea area, which has already made you feel disgusted. If the brave crab race doesn't pay a huge price, then you're destined to not accept them. Even if he has his own considerations, he can only be considered a gambler, not a wise man, right? Lin Yuan smiled and didn't respond. However, his evaluation of Cyrus in his heart had once again lowered. It seemed that the clan leader with the title of Iron Mane had always disguised himself well for so many years. Most of the speculators wanted to curry favor with Lin Yuan simply because they felt that the aberrant who could force the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas to abandon their territory in the Endless Sea and flee to the continent was not easy to deal with. Even if they gathered the power of the entire Endless Sea, they might not be able to win this war. They wanted to use this matter to curry favor with Lin Yuan to obtain an opportunity to develop in the Tianwu continent. Although Lin Yuan was currently restricted to the Endless Sea, All the leaders of the demonic beast clans knew that the demonic beasts of the Endless Sea were destined to not be accepted by the Tianwu continent. Only Lin Yuan, who had his own territory, was qualified to allow them to continue to breed on the continent. Therefore, when the time came, even if Lin Yuan didn't want to leave, he would be forced to leave by the powerful demonic beasts of the Endless Sea. At the same time, those who would be taken away would also be the outstanding juniors of the various clans. Under such circumstances, there were many demonic beasts who were willing to curry favor with Lin Yuan. However, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas and Lin Yuan seemed to have formed a death grudge, so these speculators did not dare to go too far. They could only use various methods to curry favor with Lin Yuan and strive for a good impression. If there really came a day when their clans went to the continent, they would be able to obtain a good territory. Then, when the other sea demon clans were cowering, what could they do to maximize the benefits? That was to ignore the dragon clan of the Four Seas and resolutely rely on Lin Yuan. It was easy to say, but it was extremely difficult to achieve this. Although the dragon clan of the Four Seas did not find trouble with Lin Yuan now, that was because the great old ones were like a sharp blade hanging over their heads. It was hard to say whether they could protect their territory in the Endless Sea. Currying favor with Lin Yuan was also part of the plan. But what if this war was won? Would Lin Yuan, who had gathered a large number of sea demon clans under his command, threaten the dragon clan of the Four Seas' position in the Endless Sea? The answer was yes. At that time, the dragon clan of the Four Seas would definitely not be polite to Lin Yuan. They would definitely send troops to suppress him. They would either kill Lin Yuan, assimilate Lin Yuan, or drive him back to the Sky Martial Continent. And the clans that gathered around Lin Yuan would have no other choice. Only death. Those speculators who curried favor with Lin Yuan were the real gamblers. On the contrary, the clan leader of the Iron Mackerel clan was a wise man who had hidden himself well. Who knew if the young clan leader's provocation of Lin Yuan was incited or hinted by his father? If they did not want to be listed as a threat by the dragon clan of the Four Seas, they would have to pay the necessary price. For example, they would first provoke Lin Yuan's disgust, then sacrifice the young clan leader that they thought highly of. After paying a huge price, the entire Brave Crab clan would be unwillingly under Lin Yuan's command. In this way, the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas would not have an excuse to find trouble with them. Even if such a day really came, they would be able to abandon the darkness for the light at any time and become a vanguard of the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas to suppress Lin Yuan. No clan leader with the character of a gambler would bet the survival of the entire clan on his own vision. Tai Manus's actions could only show that he had enough foresight. He could vaguely see the great changes in the future of the Endless Sea and Lin Yuan's ambition, so he had made sufficient preparations. Chapter 766. Back to the topic. Have you thought about the next step of the Willowstone Sea area? Lin Yuan took a deep breath and threw away all the distracting thoughts in his mind before asking. Cyrus was slightly taken aback. In a low voice, he said, "The situation in the Willow Rock Sea region is rather special because the nearby demonic beasts all want to curry favor with us. If we can't find an excuse to start a war, it's impossible to expand by force. We can only implement another path of development, such as trade." Cyrus paused and seemed to organize his words before continuing. The Willowstone Sea area has a special product called Willowstone. It has good density and some self-recovery ability. It's considered a hot product and is a material that should be prioritized when building strategic facilities. Although other sea areas also produce it, the total amount can't be compared to the Willowstone Sea area. This is also the reason why various forces coveted the territory of the Willowstone Sea area. My idea is not enough. Before Cyrus could finish speaking, Lin Yuan shook his head gently and said in a deep voice, "It's not that simple to do business. How many Willowstone mines are there, where they're distributed, how many people we have to start production, and how many Willowstones we can produce every month? Have you investigated all these things? If not, you have to start from the beginning. If you have, then just one special product won't be enough to support trade activities." I haven't investigated these things, but there are records stored over the years. If you want to investigate in detail, it will be very fast. Also, after the brave crab tribe joins us, we will have more people. Mining a large amount of willow stones won't be a problem. Besides, willow stones are selling very well in the endless sea. If we can organize a caravan, we won't have to worry about sales. Now that the relationship between various parties is complicated, even if the dragon tribe of the four seas wants willow stones, they will have to take out materials to exchange. Willow stones were tributes in the past. If the Willow Stone Sea area didn't fall into our hands, we wouldn't even have the qualifications to do trade. Cyrus's face slightly changed, but he immediately felt relieved. The Black Water Dragon King in front of him was a big boss who relied on trade to stabilize the northern frontier. He was undoubtedly more professional than a layman like him. It was reasonable to raise doubts. Yes, you're right. There's no need to worry about selling willow stones. It can bring in a lot of value in a short period of time. But you've neglected the most important point, which is that the investment and effort will slowly become disproportionate as time passes. In the past, willow stones were something that the lobster had offered as a tribute to the dragon palace of the four seas. Only the dragon race of the four seas had the right to use willow stones to build and maintain buildings. In the short term, if he organized caravans to sell willow stones, there would be people buying them from all over the world. Along the way, he would bring some goods from various sea regions to sell in other sea regions. Indeed, he would be able to earn a large amount of phase and various resources. But speaking of which, haven't you ever thought that all goods have market saturation? For example, if you sell willow stones to the nearby sea region, it's simple and convenient, but how many willow stones can the people in the nearby sea region consume? As time passes, the sea regions you have to go to will be farther and farther away. You'll need to invest a lot of time and energy. Moreover, not all sea demon tribes will be kind to us. Once you leave our sphere of influence, apart from merchants in charge of selling goods and odd job workers to transport goods, you'll also need to hire a large number of experts to accompany and protect you. Have you calculated the cost of these fees? The profit of willow stones will become smaller and smaller, and the harvest cycle will become longer and longer. However, the scale of the caravan will continue to expand, and the various expenses of hiring people will also increase. Gradually, our profits will become losses. I know you want to imitate the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce, but the Endless Sea is different from the Hungduan mountain range. The Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce provides convenience for the other human dynasties and demon tribes. In addition, with my face and the exclusive right to operate, there's no need to worry about the goods being ruined. Therefore, it can continuously provide a large amount of income. Lin Yuan's voice was very soft, but when it fell into Cyrus's ears, it was like a heavy hammer pounding on its head. It had never heard of terms like market saturation and exclusive right to operate. However, if it continued to follow Lin Yuan's train of thought, it would indeed suffer more and more losses by selling willow stones. After all, willow stones were not hard currency like grains. Willow stones were definitely good stuff, but the price could not be outrageous. Otherwise, the other sea demon tribes would still be able to survive well after relying on ordinary materials to build their territories for so many years. Without a major threat, who would be willing to spend more money? Sooner or later, willow stones would be difficult to sell. As the sea regions they had to go to were farther and farther away, the scale and strength of the caravan would have to be gradually increased. This would further reduce the profits. Cyrus suddenly felt bitter and did not know what to say for a moment. Although there were teleportation portals that could connect the powerful sea regions directly, and there was no need to forcefully travel through them, the most important problem now was that the foundation of the Willowstone Sea region had been destroyed in the previous battle. In order not to leave any evidence behind, after trapping the 9 sons of the dragon race, the other control parties had also been killing and destroying each other. The teleportation portal of the Willowstone Sea region did not escape the disaster and was damaged in that great battle. The method of building teleportation portals had always been in the hands of the dragons of the 4 seas. Ever since the subordinates of the dragon palaces gradually became disobedient, The dragons of the four seas no longer built new teleportation portals, nor would they maintain or repair the ones they had built. It could be said that every time it was used, there would be less of it. To teleport between different sea regions, a large number of materials or spiritual items were required to use it. Therefore, the way of doing business through teleportation portals was also cut off. The cost and the profits were completely unequal. However, Lin Yuan changed the topic and said in a deep voice, "Business is indeed a way." Cyrus's face was even more dumbfounded. "Good heavens, what the F***CK? I said business, and you told me it was not feasible. You just reprimanded me, and now you say business is a way. So you have no problem, and business is not a problem? But I have a problem?" Cyrus was immediately enraged. In extreme anger, it squeezed out a smile. "Dragon King, please advise me on what to do. Mine the Willowstone Sea region and build a city. The bigger, the better, and the more luxurious, the better. In short, I want everyone who comes to the Willowstone Sea region to be amazed. I want their first reaction to be that the Willowstone Sea region is rich and powerful. I'll take care of the rest." Lin Yuan's tail gently tapped the ground, and his multicolored eyes flickered. Chapter 767. Lin Yuan's idea was simple. The Endless Sea was not like the Hungduan mountain range. Doing business here, unless it was selling hard currency, would be a dead end. It was just a matter of time. The Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce was able to gain a foothold in the various dynasties simply because the Hungduan mountain range was located in the center of the continent. It could directly reach the territory of the seven dynasties, and the speed was many times faster than taking a detour. The other human chambers of commerce could not possibly have Lin Yuan's influence. Once they entered the Hungduan mountain range, they would need to hire powerful cultivators to escort them. Moreover, in the Hungduan mountain range, where countless monsters ran rampant, even a Void Realm expert would not dare to say that he could cross with his body, not to mention those mercenaries who were willing to sell their lives for cultivation resources. Just based on this point alone, the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce could directly suppress the other chambers of commerce. Perhaps once or twice, the chambers of commerce of the various dynasties could suppress the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce. However, the most important problem was that they could casually suppress the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce in their own territory, but to do business and make money, they would have to trade with other dynasties. They would have to go through the northern frontier, or pass through the Shenwu dynasty's territory where the Sky Demon resided, or the Endless Sea where monsters ran rampant. If they dared to suppress the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce, the northern frontier would dare to directly kill them and steal their goods. No matter how strong the Chamber of Commerce was, it was impossible for them to challenge a force that had the potential to become the seventh dynasty. Naturally, the final winner would be, without a doubt, the various chambers of commerce could only hide under the shadow of the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce and beg the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce to buy their goods. Although the profits would be greatly reduced, if they offended the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce, they would not even be able to sell their goods. Previously, a few chambers of commerce that tried to suppress the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce with their own relationships and connections were destroyed in this way. Therefore, there could only be one Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce, and it could not be duplicated. However, in the Endless Sea, without enough power, wanting to trade fairly with the sea monster clans was no different than committing suicide. If one wanted to do business here, there was no way out by establishing a caravan. However, there was another path in front of Lin Yuan, and that was the shopping platform. It wasn't difficult to run a shopping platform. The difficult part was that the operator had to have a certain level of credibility. They had to be able to convince the various sea demon clans to send their goods here to be sold. Furthermore, they had to have the strength to ensure the safety of the traders. In the entire Endless Sea, only the Dragon Tribe of the Four Seas and the Sea Demon Guild had the ability to create a shopping platform. But neither of them thought of this, or rather, they didn't need this method to accumulate wealth. However, Lin Yuan was different. Not only did he think of this method, but he also wanted the resources and wealth produced by the Endless Sea. Cyrus, Find a way to contact the upper echelons of the Siren Guild and ask them to send their monsters here to set up a branch. Also, I have some matters to discuss with the Siren Guild in person. Lin Yuan thought for a moment, then stopped Cyrus, who had not had time to go out, and reminded him. The grayscale flood dragon person wasn't very powerful, but together with the power of the brave crab tribe, it was more than enough to ensure the safety of the Willow Rock Sea area. However, Lin Yuan knew that there was no end to earning money in this world. If he took all of it by himself, he would only attract the attention of others. He needed a strong and powerful partner. Otherwise, why would he have split the profits from the northern frontier and given them to the forces led by the Heavenly Gates Guardians? In his previous life, the shopping platforms didn't need powerful forces because the country was prosperous and the people were at peace. However, in this world, the law of the jungle was played out incisively and vividly. Without enough strength, one didn't even have the qualifications to be a merchant. Just like in the ancient times of his previous life, there was a logistics industry called escort agency. When the Siren Guild joined in, it would replace this industry called escort agency and provide a service of delivering goods to the monsters that couldn't take away their goods. Or, if someone was willing to pay a certain price, it wouldn't be a problem to hire members of the Siren Guild as guards. Once Lin Yuan's plan was successfully implemented, in the entire Endless Sea, there might not be any branch of the Siren Guild that could match the income of the Willow Rock Sea Area branch. With such benefits, even the Siren Guild wouldn't have a reason to watch it fall into the hands of others, right? After all, they were in this line of work to begin with. When the two of them formed a community of benefits, would it be difficult to rope in the Siren Guild? He wanted to build a trading city from scratch in the Willow Rock Sea area. He wanted to let the various siren merchant groups that came and went from the south to the north become addicted to everything here. When they could enjoy the same convenience as the monsters in the Hungduan Mountains, the grayscale flood dragon person would be completely neutral in the Endless Sea. As for the other siren clans that tried to imitate him, it wasn't that Lin Yuan looked down on them. Even if they were given another 100 years to prepare, they wouldn't be able to build a trading city. In this world where the law of the jungle prevailed, the relationship between monsters wasn't pure. There were countless examples of killing and hunting each other. Without Lin Yuan's condition of being the retreat route for the monsters in the Endless Sea, even if they built a trading city, there wouldn't be many monsters that would be willing to trust them. As for Lin Yuan, he wanted to take advantage of the fact that the Siren clan still trusted him and tried to curry favor with him. He wanted to use this trading city to trap them and provide him with an endless stream of benefits. The other monsters didn't have this condition. At that time, the only one that had the ability to build a second trading city would be the Siren Guild, because they would be able to continuously benefit from Lin Yuan. It wouldn't be good for them to fall out with him and do it alone. Moreover, even if they were willing to do it alone, it would be after the benefits of this trading city were enough to make them envious. Furthermore, he still had a trump card. Even if the Siren Guild was envious of the benefits of the trading city, they didn't use this trump card. I suspect that you are looking down on me. I can pull you out from the body of a dying human, then pass through the sea of bitterness and let you merge with an ordinary black snake in the sky martial world to become a new life form. I can also give you the ability to directly upgrade yourself. I can add the pure water dragon bloodline to your black snake physique to strengthen your strength. Do you know what kind of power is needed to do these things? You actually dare to doubt someone as great as me? You don't even have the ability to copy a low-level teleportation formation? Boring, Lin Yuan, really boring. When you asked such an ignorant question, my first reaction was that you were insulting me. Then I couldn't help but laugh at your ignorance and humility. Ha ha ha. Chapter 768. Generally speaking, the situation in the Endless Sea was still stable, and everything seemed to be going in a good direction. Lin Yuan was not sure how long the balance between the Great Old Ones and the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas could be maintained. However, a battlefield where even true gods could fall was not something he could casually intervene in. Although he was sometimes more domineering, that was based on the condition that he had the strength to control the situation. Lin Yuan did not want to do a job that would send him to his death. There were about 27 days left before the rest time given by the system. Even if the monsters of the endless sea clashed with the great old ones tomorrow, Lin Yuan would pretend that he did not see it. However, after 27 days, even if the great old ones and the monsters of the endless sea did not start a war, Lin Yuan would have to intervene. The system was unbound and detached. To the current Lin Yuan, it was not a threat at all. As an existence with the system, he was still a mere mountain lord after such a long time. He had not even touched the clouds of this world. This kind of growth speed was considered an absolute humiliation among the system owners. However, it was clear that Lin Yuan, who had become a humiliation, was not completely without gains. Now, even without the help of the system, he could still sit firmly in the position of Black Water Dragon King and continue to advance step by step. Without the system, he could instead obtain the favor of the will of this world. As long as he had enough strength, he could open up his own underworld kingdom and become one of the rulers of the sky martial world. Compared to the other seeds that were firmly bound by the system and would become trash once they lost the system, it was much better. At least now Lin Yuan could calmly express that he was not a puppet of the system. Both sides were just collaborators with unequal strength. It was impossible that there were only 10,000 worlds in the myriad worlds, and the system could not have chosen only 9,000 hosts. There should be countless more that died and were abandoned. In the future, there might be others that were chosen to join the battle against Hongjun. These hosts were special to the world they were in, and Lin Yuan was also special among these hosts. 27 days. Willow Roxy region is safe for now. Defeating the Sky Demon army shouldn't be a problem, right? Lin Yuan muttered to himself as a glint flashed across his eyes. In the next moment, a figure wrapped in a black robe walked out. He looked at Lin Yuan indifferently, then nodded lightly and put Lin Yuan's body into his beast pouch. The figure was the body of a puppet sent back by the ancestral dragon. Because of the self-detonation of the telepathic thought, the body of the puppet, which had lost control, was dragged away by the search team organized by the dragon palaces of the four seas. However, the body of the puppet was created by combining the skillful craftsmen of the northern frontier and the knowledge and ideas of Lin Yuan from his previous life. It was not something that the dragons of the four seas, whose technology was extremely backward, could easily analyze and replicate. His research was fruitless, and Lin Yuan's identity was a mystery. There was at least an ancient god that was stronger than the ancestral dragon behind him. The dragon palaces of the four seas also had to reconsider the importance of Lin Yuan. That's right. The dragon palaces of the four seas maintained a hostile relationship with Lin Yuan on the surface, suppressing those sea demon clans from joining Lin Yuan's forces. At the same time, they began to think of ways to please Lin Yuan without affecting the overall interests of the dragons of the four seas. Returning things to their original owners was a basic operation. When the body of the puppet was sent back, the dragons of the four seas even gave a lot of precious seabed minerals. However, Lin Yuan only had theories and couldn't improve the body of the puppet, so it had been put aside until now. Although it hadn't been improved, the body of the puppet could still be used after separating a telepathic thought. Although the body of the puppet didn't have the strength of Lin Yuan's body, it was more than enough to guard the Willow Roxy region. With a change of mind, Lin Yuan took the initiative to activate descend mode before the beast pouch fell into a complete sleep. At the same time, in the south of the Shimu dynasty, in Zhulu City, a young man in his 20s slowly opened his eyes. His black and white eyes trembled slightly. After a while, they turned into a pair of different colored eyes like Lin Yuan. The only difference was that his eyes only changed color. It wasn't much different from the eyes of ordinary humans. It wasn't like Lin Yuan's, which belonged to the standard snake-type vertical pupils. It's been a long time since a human body. The young man opened his mouth, but what came out was Lin Yuan's voice. However, it was different from the way of using telepathic thought to vibrate the air to form a voice in the past. This time, the voice was completely the operation of the human body's vocal organ. It was like two pieces of crisp jade colliding together. It was very pleasing to the ear. As far as the eyes could see, it was also a normal, colorful world. It was an extremely normal sense for humans, but for Lin Yuan, it was indeed a long-lost experience. Although he could see and speak in the past, snakes didn't have vision. They could only observe the target's actions through thermal imaging. Other than that, most of the time, they were like blind people. The snakes in this world were more advanced than the snakes in Lin Yuan's previous life. Although they had vision, it was similar to a dog's vision. Black and white were distinct. Although he didn't use his own eyes much, the perception brought by the eye of God was enough for him to notice any movement. He walked to the front of a dressing table and glanced at the figure reflected in the mirror. Lin Yuan's eyes slowly widened, and his pupils contracted violently. Why is it a girl? Lin Yuan's expression was a little strange. The young man in the mirror had a jade-like face. If he was wearing white clothes and holding a paper fan, he could be regarded as an elegant young master. Although he was indeed not an unparalleled young master, with this face, he could live a comfortable life even in this troubled world. It couldn't be easier for him to exchange for the favor and protection of those noble women with his appearance. But the problem was that this delicate face belonged to a girl. Even if it couldn't be seen from the outside, Lin Yuan could easily feel the restraint brought by the chest wrap. A girl disguised as a man and hid in deer-chasing city. She also prayed devoutly and longed for his arrival. "'Tis troublesome." Lin Yuan shook his head, and a touch of bitterness flashed through his heterochromatic eyes. It was just a physical body that his consciousness had descended upon. Moreover, it was an ordinary person without any cultivation. With his current ability, he could spend some incense power to mold this body into the so-called holy body or divine body, let alone change the gender of this body. However, as a practical person, Lin Yuan didn't want to waste incense power on this kind of thing. It wasn't like he didn't have his own body. No matter how good a human body was, could he keep using it? If his own body was killed, it would be too late for regrets. Chapter 769. His body was still a little uncomfortable. Lin Yuan hadn't controlled a human body for a long time. Even if he had a puppet body that looked like a human, it couldn't be compared to a real human. Simply put, the human body is the hardest thing in the world, a precise instrument. Lin Yuan only needed a thought to control the puppet's body to make the corresponding movements. Although controlling the human body is also a matter of a thought, one must consider the adaptability of the body itself. Excessive movements are easy to cause injuries such as sprains, dislocations, and other injuries. Without hands, the puppet body wouldn't feel pain. At most, it would have one less means of fighting. But without hands, a human would die on the spot due to excessive bleeding. However, this kind of discomfort wasn't purely because of Lin Yuan's body. "Then, I will listen to your last wish in this world." Lin Yuan sat upright in front of the dressing table. His facial expression returned to its calm as water. Believers offering their bodies for the gods to descend didn't mean that the gods didn't have to pay a price. Otherwise, the deities in his previous life wouldn't have been banished to the mortal world. It wouldn't have been the cruelest punishment from the heavenly court. In order to perfectly control the body, one had to first fulfill the last wish of the person who was willing to offer their body. Usually, this kind of wish wasn't easy. If this wish couldn't be fulfilled, the body would produce a strong repulsive force and expel the deity who possessed the body. For people like Lin Yuan, it was fine. At most, his divine thoughts would be damaged to a certain extent. He would then return to his body to recuperate. However, those deities whose bodies were killed by the heavenly court and whose souls were banished to the mortal world didn't have such good luck. The best outcome was probably to become a wandering ghost that couldn't be reincarnated. Some even had their souls scattered. The omniscient and omnipotent existence in the West in his previous life was no exception. It was just that he was more cunning. He would cultivate fanatics who were willing to sacrifice everything for the gods. For these fanatics, being able to offer their bodies to the gods they believed in was a supreme honor. Why would they make such an excessive request? Unfortunately, this girl wasn't a fanatic of Lin Yuan. She offered her body for Lin Yuan to descend. It could be seen as a transaction. Even ants drag out their lives, let alone humans. If it wasn't for the impending despair, how could this girl be willing to become Lin Yuan's flesh raft? Kill him, kill them all? The person in the mirror was no longer in sync with Lin Yuan. Instead, he roared with a twisted and ferocious expression. As soon as the voice fell, the person in the mirror suddenly collapsed. When it reassembled, it had already changed into a calm face like Lin Yuan's, as if everything that had just happened was just a fantasy. At the same time, Lin Yuan felt a pain in his right hand. When he lifted his sleeve, he saw a hideous wound that was so deep that his bones could be seen. Blood was constantly flowing out. The healing speed of the wound was very slow. Lin Yuan only needed a glance to make a judgment. Such a wound would take at least 10 days to completely heal. And after the wound healed, if Lin Yuan still did not complete the girl's last wish, then he would face a powerful repulsive force. This was the rule of the descent of a god. He closed his eyes and pondered for a moment. Memories flooded his mind like a tidal wave. Lin Yuan's beautiful facial features changed again, revealing a bitter smile. Lin Yuan touched his nose and murmured, "It turns out that I am just anyone." Yes, this girl was not even his believer. She just happened to know that he existed. Before Lin Yuan's descent, she had done all the rituals she knew and called out all the names of the gods she knew. Even Lin Yuan, the newly promoted god of the northern frontier, was not spared. It could be seen that the scope of the net was wide. Perhaps the humans in his previous life, who called themselves the Sea King, would be ashamed of their inferiority. The wound on her right hand came from the blood-stained dagger beside the dressing table. It was part of the ritual to summon a god, but this kind of ritual was usually fabricated by the lunatics of the devil sect. It was not worthy of trust at all. If she used this method to summon a god, she would have died from excessive blood loss before the gods who were busy every day could react. But at the end of her life, her prayer happened to be heard by Lin Yuan. At that time, she said, "Just anyone is fine. As long as my wish is fulfilled, I can give up everything." Lin Yuan was just anyone. It was obviously a ritual to summon the gods of the Tianwu world, but the only one who showed his divinity in the world, Lin Yuan, seemed to be unworthy of having a name. This is really infuriating. Lin Yuan shook his head, and his eyes flashed. His right hand sank, and the blood overflowing from the wound instantly solidified into black-red ice cubes, sealing the blood that was constantly overflowing. And after all, it was just a mortal body. According to the rate of bleeding, he estimated that in less than 10 days, he would die from excessive blood loss. But the system was actually so tyrannical. Lin Yuan's eyes flashed with a faint light. This body did not have any cultivation. It was completely an ordinary human, but it could use the skills on the system panel. Except for a few skills that could only be used through the body of a demonic beast, Lin Yuan could use most of the skills directly. What was this? This was cheating, my friend. Why did the gods not descend to the world? Was it because they were not willing to show their divinity and spread their beliefs? Obviously not. That was because no matter how powerful the gods were, once they descended into the body of an ordinary believer, they would not be able to use any of their divine power. Therefore, when ordinary people felt despair, they would also feel despair. The path of using brute force to break through 10,000 laws would definitely not work. When using wisdom, it did not matter how great the gods were praised by their believers. It was still the same sentence. The omnipotent and omniscient gods did not exist. They only had powerful strength, immortal looks, and long lifespans. When they were deprived of their powerful strength, the strength they could use might not be as strong as a human's. Why could the chess player control the fate of the chess piece? Because they were outside the chessboard. But if they fell into the chessboard and became a chess piece with the thoughts of the chess player, what could they do? Wasn't their fate in the hands of the chess player behind them? However, Lin Yuan was able to display his skills with the body of a mortal. This kind of behavior is tantamount to cheating. So, what if he only had the strength of a mountain lord? How big could the trouble caused by an ordinary person be? Could the existence of a mountain lord not be able to deal with it? But the most important question now was, who were they? Chapter 770. Lin Yuan had already absorbed all of the girl's memories. However, the memories did not clearly point out who she wanted to kill. After all, who didn't have a few enemies when they were traveling in the world? However, the problem was that the girl's enemies were all over the world. The furthest were even from other dynasties. If he wanted to kill all of them, Lin Yuan would have to use the power of the northern frontier. However, that was obviously not realistic. Not to mention whether he could safely pass through the Sky Demon's territory. He might not even be safe in the south. After absorbing the girl's memories, Lin Yuan finally understood why the Sky Demon army had suddenly stationed troops at the Wei River to attack the northern frontier. It was not because the south had fallen. It was because there was no need for the Sky Demon to worry about the south. Ever since the Baixing Navy had been scattered by Lin Yuan, the Sky Demon had carried out a decapitation plan. The upper echelons of the southern interest groups led by Lei Qiuming had either died or escaped. Now, their whereabouts were unknown. Naturally, the south had fallen into the hands of the demon sect. What were the demon sect? They were madmen who worshipped Hongjun. Strictly speaking, the demon sect had contributed greatly to the Sky Demon's repeated invasions of the Tianwu world. Since their allies had begun to invade the south, it was naturally inappropriate for the heavenly demons to intervene. Therefore, they directly integrated their forces and began to eye the north covetously. Previously, Lin Yuan had set up a plan to fight against the Xinwu dynasty, but it had turned out to be a failure at this moment. It was not an exaggeration to say that he had led the wolf into the house. However, Lin Yuan was not an omniscient and omnipotent existence. Back then, he only had Lei Qiushing in his eyes. In order to resist the Xinwu dynasty, he naturally had to resort to unscrupulous means. It did not matter if he had led the wolf into the house. In any case, the disaster would not come to him in a short period of time. However, who would have thought that Lei Qiushing actually had a deal with the Sky Demon? Apart from Lei Qiushing, most of the nobles, ministers, and dignitaries were also under the control of Sky Demon. This wave is lifting a rock and dropping it on my own feet, system? Lin Yuan's eyes flashed with a strange color, and he asked tentatively, "Spit it out." The system did not seem to be in a good mood. It rebuked Lin Yuan fiercely, as if it was suddenly woken up from its sleep. Between the lines, there was a hint of resentment and displeasure. "Give me a martial art. I want it to be powerful and domineering. It's best if it can attract attention," Lin Yuan said with a grin. The strength of a mountain lord could be unleashed, but that was not the normal state. When releasing skills, one could be said to be invincible. However, most of the skills required a strong physique to be used. Furthermore, skills like the Water Monarch and Formless Ice had a long cooldown that would allow the enemy to kill Lin Yuan. Therefore, the improvement of one's strength had to be on the right track. Furthermore, he was certain that this girl's enemy was definitely not far from her. Perhaps the girl had already unknowingly discovered him, which led to her summoning the gods. If he could not solve the problem, then he would solve the person who raised the problem. No, if he could not find the hidden enemy, then he would make the hidden enemy jump out and find him. Request accepted. Calculating. Cross-world mission issuing. Beep. Mission completed. Host request has been delivered to your doorstep. Please pay incense power to redeem it. Remember to leave a good review, dear. Lin Yuan. What the heck? What the heck is this cross-world mission issuing? What the heck is this that requires me to spend incense power? I spent more than 3,000 points of incense power. Why don't I just get a grayscale flood dragon person to be my bodyguard? The investment is small, and the returns are high. It can even provide me with an endless supply of incense power. Are you a dog? Here's a friendly reminder. I couldn't sense your thoughts previously, because that body of yours had been tampered with by the Beast Master. He might have used some kind of karma power or some kind of natural spiritual treasure. I won't be able to decipher it in a short period of time. However, if you use this body to communicate with me, regardless of whether you're willing or not, I can hear your thoughts. Are you King scolding me? Look straight at me, bastard. Do you really think you can use skills out of thin air? I'll say the same thing again. Even if you're dreaming, you should know your limits. Although the cost of using skills won't fall on this body of yours, it will be directly deducted from incense power. If you're unwilling, then don't use skills. Are you a member of the Peach Blossoms Network? Also, incense power has many uses. It's considered a hard currency in all the worlds. If you want living beings from other worlds to work for you, you'll have to pay incense power. When you make cross-world transactions with other hosts, you'll also have to pay incense power. Do you understand? If you don't use this thing, how are you going to become stronger? Why are you acting like a miser? As for the grayscaled flood dragon person, don't forget that this isn't the northern frontier. Even if you've fallen into the hands of the demon sect, you'll have to use any tricks that you can't see the light of day. You can try and see how many righteous cultivators will appear to suppress you if a demon beast appears in a human city. I've deducted the incense power for you. That's all. Talk to you later. I still have things to do. A series of words appeared, catching Lin Yuan off guard. A moment later, a slightly yellowed ancient book appeared in front of Lin Yuan, as well as a silver-white long saber. Name: Guan Shanxue type. Weapon: saber. Rating: B characteristic: 1. Drifting snow effect. This saber was refined from the cold iron of the snow mountain, supplemented with layers of cold materials, and forged with extremely cold fire. When swung, it can produce a large amount of ice-type spiritual energy like drifting snowflakes. It's extremely beautiful, but also extremely dangerous. It can slowly lower the surrounding temperature, causing the blood of the people around it to gradually solidify and freeze. Characteristic: 2. Cold front effect. The saber contains a large amount of ice-type spiritual energy. It can freeze everything that comes into contact with the saber. With every swing of the saber, the cold energy in the opponent's body will accumulate until it's completely frozen by the cold energy. Name: Thousand Mountain Saber Technique Type. Martial Arts Secret Manual Rating: 3rd grade martial arts effect. To cultivate this saber technique, one's aptitude is not important. The most important thing is perseverance. Only after swinging the saber 30,000 times a day can one be initiated. When one swings the saber light will fill the sky, as if 1,000 mountains are pressing down on it. It's not something that can be resisted by humans. Lin Yuan's strange eyes flashed. A curse hung on the edge of his mouth, but he didn't spit it out for a long time. 3rd grade martial arts were much stronger than golden body technique, which was not initiated. But the problem was, how should one practice this saber technique? It was possible to rely on attribute points to accumulate proficiency, but golden body technique was a passive skill that could be actively activated. It was only a defensive skill, so it didn't matter whether one was proficient or not. It couldn't be based on the speed of activating the skill, right? So, golden body technique only needed to progress in its cultivation. However, the saber technique had to be used against the enemy. If one couldn't use it proficiently, it would be a joke even if it was mastered in a second. Chapter 771. Lin Yuan glanced at the secret manual, and after roughly memorizing the cultivation route and the sword technique routine, he closed the secret manual and directly froze it into ice dregs and scattered them on the ground. He picked up one Shanxue and walked out of the room. All in all, the golden body technique was a superior martial art in Lin Yuan's eyes. It was similar to the indestructible Vajra body technique in a TV series. Even a beginner would have the strength of a so-called innate expert. However, for the system that set up the universe, it was indeed a mediocre martial art. As for the Thousand Mountain Saber technique, which was rated as a third-rate martial art by the system, it was a technique on the Tianwu continent that would be regarded as the ultimate treasure of a first-rate sect. The saber technique was very simple. Drawing the saber, striking, and withdrawing the saber. These 3 simple movements were like the basic saber techniques. However, the most terrifying part of the Thousand Mountain Saber technique was not the moment the saber was struck, but the moment the saber was drawn. One's chi and blood lingered on the saber. The stronger the chi and blood, the heavier the saber. If one had the physique of Lin Yuan's original body, this saber strike would have the power of 1,000 mountains. Of course, without the support of a strong physique, the 1,000-mountain saber technique provided another way of thinking, the saber nurturing technique. Cultivators could continuously draw chi and blood from their bodies and infuse it into their saber. After a long time, the saber could even have the terrifying power to shatter the world. Although it was only one strike with blood, the power was boundless. Together with Guan Shanchu's strength, Lin Yuan could directly make a strike comparable to a void realm cultivator's in 7 days. Phew! After circulating the saber nurturing technique, Lin Yuan's body shook twice, and his face turned pale. After 10 minutes, he steadied himself, and a faint sneer appeared on his delicate face. This strike, which had almost drained half of his chi and blood, could kill an extraordinary level 7. He was barely able to protect himself when he went out. Although this woman didn't know how much trouble she had caused, her mind wasn't completely empty. The inn she was staying in was called Red Dust. 1 day's expenses were comparable to 3 days' worth of cultivation resources for an airborne realm cultivator. If it wasn't for the fact that they could use common silver to settle the bill, this woman probably wouldn't even be able to afford to stay in the Red Dust Tavern. Generally speaking, normal people would not choose to live here. Even if the rooms were luxuriously decorated and the service was excellent, the cost of living here for a day was comparable to half a month's income of a small family. However, there was definitely a reason why it was expensive. The Red Dust Inn belonged to an extreme Dao organization called the Red Dust Association. It wasn't a large organization, but it was said that its leader, the Red Dust Daoist, was already a half-step Kongming cultivator. Although he couldn't compare to those first-rate sects, he definitely couldn't be underestimated. The Red Dust Tavern could be found in almost every city in the south. Regardless of whether it was the shopkeeper or the servant, they were all people who could get along well with both the good and the bad. They had decent cultivation and were able to control the situation. After all, although the Red Dust Tavern didn't have many customers, those who were willing to stay were all people who didn't lack money. Every day, they would throw real money into the Red Dust Tavern. Some people who didn't have enough money would even sell all kinds of treasures to pay for it. It was the main source of funds for the Red Dust Society. Thus, nothing could happen to the Red Dust Tavern. If something did happen, the other party would have to pay the price in blood. Otherwise, how would they survive in the underworld if their reputation was ruined? Apart from first-rate sects and imperial court officials, very few people dared to not give the Red Dust Association face. Thus, if one stayed in the Red Dust Tavern, they wouldn't have to worry about their enemies coming to seek revenge. Otherwise, they would be slapping the Red Dust Association's face and would definitely be hunted down by the entire Red Dust Association. This woman has stayed here for half a month without any enemies. This means that her enemies aren't as strong as the Red Dust Association. At the very least, they aren't strong enough to ignore the Red Dust Association. In other words, they can only be considered a second-rate power at most. This woman's family background isn't bad either. For several generations, her family status is comparable to that of a feudal official. TSK, how troublesome. She only knows that her family's fortunes have fallen, but she doesn't know what kind of calamity has befallen her family. After walking out of the tavern, Lin Yuan let out a long breath. A hint of helplessness flashed across his eyes. If he had a choice, he would still prefer to possess one of the believers in the northern frontier. However, the south was also good. He could stab the sky demon in the back a few times. If he did it well, he could even form a connection with the gray-scaled flood dragon person in the Endless Sea. It would be beneficial for the south and the Endless Sea's layout. Lin Yuan shook his head slightly. A cold light suddenly flashed across his multicolored eyes. From the moment he stepped out until now, he had already walked half a street. The Eye of God was also operating at full power. There were at least 7 people following behind him on this street. There were also people watching the tea houses and taverns on both sides of the street. It seemed like this woman's enemies had indeed come to her door. They didn't make a move immediately, because they were afraid of the Red Dust Association. However, they sent out a lot of people to block her in the Red Dust Tavern. They were probably waiting for her to spend all her wealth and be chased out of the Red Dust Tavern before making a move. In fact, this woman really didn't have any money. At most, she would be chased out of the Red Dust Tavern in 3 days. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been so desperate to use all kinds of rituals in an attempt to summon a god. "All right," Lin Yuan muttered. He turned sideways and entered a dark alley. Immediately, the eyes of the 7 cultivators who had been following behind suddenly lit up. They put down their disguises and followed Lin Yuan into the alley. If they made a move in the Red Dust Tavern, they would be targeted by the Red Dust Association. If they made a move on the streets, they would also be targeted by the city guards. But wasn't this kind of dark and deserted alleyway the most suitable for dirty deeds like murder? In fact, when this kind of alley was first built, it was for this purpose. It existed in almost every city. There were many criminals. In Lin Yuan's previous world, it was still okay. However, in the Sky Martial continent, where the strong preyed on the weak, it was normal to want to reap without sowing just a bit of strength. There was no fear of killing these people even if they couldn't catch them all. They were like chives that could be harvested. Therefore, the local government could only turn a blind eye and build such dark alleys to provide a place for those dirty deeds in the city. This was to prevent things from getting out of hand. As long as the crime wasn't discovered, then there wouldn't be any crime. "Little girl, you're asking for death." The first cultivator to enter the dark alley sneered. His hands moved, and his joints kept cracking. He was at the middle stage of the mortal evolution state. Wasn't it easy for him to deal with an ordinary woman? "I ask, you answer. Otherwise die." Unexpectedly, the woman who was targeted by the higher-ups didn't have the slightest trace of panic on her face. Instead, she stood there calmly, as if waiting for them to come to her door. Chapter 772. What the F***ck are you talking about? The cultivator raised his eyebrows and looked up and down at Lin Yuan. After confirming that he didn't have any cultivation, a sinister smile gradually appeared on his face, and he said in a cold voice, "Oh, I know. You don't have the money to let the Red Dust Society continue to protect you. So you plan to pretend to be a big wolf to scare us? Heh, mortals will always be mortals. You'll never know." The cultivator's voice stopped abruptly, because at this moment, he had already turned into an ice sculpture with 2 halves. Noisy. Lin Yuan frowned and didn't put away his sword. He looked at the second cultivator and said coldly, "I've never been a patient person. This is your chance. Think carefully before you speak." You. The second cultivator's breathing stopped slightly. His power was about the same as the first cultivator. The result would be the same if the sword landed on him. However, this woman clearly didn't have any chi of a cultivator. How could she unleash such a terrifying attack? As his thoughts flashed, the second cultivator suddenly felt like he understood. When his gaze landed on Guan Shanxue, his eyes were filled with greed. He said in a deep voice, "Talisman, it is definitely a talisman. I didn't expect you to have such fortune, to find a magic treasure that can be used by ordinary people." Speaking of this, he also showed a hideous grin on his face. "Little girl, do you know that you're facing powerful and noble cultivators? The things we know are much more than what you know. Using a magic treasure of this level once is already an overdraft. You can't use it a second time in a short time." The 5 cultivators behind the second cultivator also reacted instantly. They suppressed the shock and panic in their eyes. Intense greed began to appear in their eyes. Even an ordinary person could instantly kill a middle-stage mortal evolution state. If a treasure of this level fell into their hands, even an airborne realm cultivator would have to avoid it for the time being. Lin Yuan's face was calm. He didn't say anything, as though what the other party said had nothing to do with him. "Grandpa will give you a chance. Give me the saber in your hand, and I will let you die a quick death. At least I won't let you be humiliated before dying." "Ha ha, ha." The second cultivator was laughing when he suddenly felt a chill on his neck. His vision suddenly dimmed. Lin Yuan, on the other hand, had already walked past him and faced the third cultivator. "Now, do you want to take a gamble and see if I can make the third slash?" "I did?" The second cultivator's face darkened. He wanted to turn around and attack Lin Yuan, but his body did not move. It was as if it was no longer his body. Following that, he felt as if the world was spinning. The last thing he saw was a headless corpse. The corpse stood where it was, and not a single drop of blood flowed out of the wound. If one looked closely, they would see that the blood that flowed out of the cut had all turned into dark red ice. The corpse stood there because it had been frozen into a lump. Gulped! The third cultivator swallowed a mouthful of saliva. The greed in his eyes instantly disappeared, leaving behind only endless panic and fear. In the next moment, the cultivator at the back of the group had just turned around when he fell to the ground with a plop. His body quickly shriveled up, and in an instant, he had become a dried corpse. Whoever runs will die. Lin Yuan's face was still expressionless. In reality, he knew very well that he didn't have the ability to kill the fourth person. He had already used the blade nurturing strike, formless ice, and water monarch. They were now entering the cooldown stage. As for skills like sea suppressing tail and void embrace, he had to consider whether or not his body could withstand them. His main body was naturally fine, but this was an ordinary person's body. He would probably explode and die when he used these skills. As for the blood-boiling technique, to Lin Yuan's main body, a buff skill without any side effects was indeed quite good. However, this body was only that of an ordinary person. Could an ordinary person's body be compared to these cultivators in front of him if their physique was increased by 3 times? Wasn't that just wishful thinking? I'm King Ning's right-hand man. I'm a disciple of the Flying Star sect. I'm Su Situ's right-hand man. I'm just a mercenary on a bounty mission. The 4 cultivators who were still alive thought quickly and responded to Lin Yuan's question. After all, the 7 of them had similar cultivation. The mission target could kill 3 of them in an instant. Who could guarantee that he didn't have the ability to kill a 4th person? They didn't even want to take a gamble. In other words, they were on this mission for the reward, but they hadn't reached the point where they would risk their lives to complete it. None of them wanted to continue angering Lin Yuan and see if they would become the next victim. King Ning? Flying Star Sect? Su Situ? Mercenary Guild? Lin Yuan's eyelids twitched slightly. How many enemies did this woman make? No. This woman must have some secrets that even he didn't know about. Otherwise, the seniors of several feudal officials wouldn't have fallen for no reason. She also wouldn't have been chased to the point of trembling in fear. All her servants and attendants died in battle, and she had to spend a lot of money in exchange for the protection of the Red Dust Gang. Why are you guys trying to kill me? Lin Yuan tilted his head and asked the second question in a cold tone. I'm just following orders. As for the details, before King Ning's right-hand man could finish his sentence, his head had already flown out and hit the wall of the alley. Then you're worthless, Lin Yuan said expressionlessly, as if he was talking to the corpse. However, the other 3 people who were still alive knew that he was actually talking to them. No matter what they were thinking, it was best not to try to bluff their way out of this. Lying and being worthless would only lead to a dead end. They didn't believe that this woman, who seemed to be prepared, really didn't know anything. Su Situ's right-hand man and the mercenary quietly took a step back, not daring to face Lin Yuan. Such a small action naturally couldn't escape the eye of the god. Huh! Lin Yuan's lips curled up slightly. His eyes fell on the Flying Star sect disciple's face and asked, It seems that you know very well why you're chasing me. No, we're not chasing you. We're chasing you. The Flying Star sect disciple's face didn't change, but his legs kept trembling. He said in a trembling voice, You have a body of extreme mean. If you can be used as a double cultivation furnace, you can help our senior brother break through the realm. Chapter 773. Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes. In the novels in his previous life, he had seen stories of sect disciples capturing cultivation vessels. But the problem was that even if he was in a novel, he would definitely be the main character, okay? How could such a story happen to him when he was targeted and wanted to be captured as a cultivation vessel? That was very strange. The disciple of the Flying Star sect seemed to have regained his confidence when the name of his eldest brother was brought up. While he was still trembling, his tone became a lot harsher as he coldly said, Miss Guan, our eldest brother is 41 years old, and he is already at the peak of the airborne realm. If you work with him, he will definitely make it to the celestial star realm within 2 years. Even Lord Ning and Su Situ have to give face to our eldest brother. There is no way the Guan clan, which has already declined, can escape from our eldest brother's grasp. At this point, the Flying Star sect's disciple smiled and said disdainfully, I don't know what kind of opportunity you have, but in the face of true power, it doesn't matter how many treasures you have. If you're willing to cooperate and give yourself and your opportunity to eldest senior brother, it'll only take a single word from eldest senior brother to make the Guan clan rise again. He was sure that he was the big senior brother of the Flying Star sect. As for them, they should be the Flying Star sect disciples, King Ning and Su Situ's accomplices. Since he knew what he wanted to know, the rest was much easier. You're right. In the face of absolute power, treasures are useless no matter how many treasures you have. Unfortunately, you don't know anything about true power. Lin Yuan slowly looked up, and a cold light flashed in his multicolored eyes. The next moment his chi changed. Name, Guan Zhaoshan status, God descends, Lin Yuan, state, 7/10 speed, 11 attack, 13 defense, 11 assignable attribute points, 0 talent. First, the 9 Phoenix body is a special constitution. Cultivation efficiency is increased by 100%, and the affinity for attribute cultivation methods is maxed out. If one cultivates attribute or frost attribute cultivation methods, their cultivation speed will be increased by another 100%. However, when cultivating attribute or frost attribute cultivation methods, their cultivation speed will be reduced by 70%. Martial Arts 1. Thousand Mountain Sword Technique. Skills 1. Sword Nurturing Technique. Congratulations, host, for killing a level 5 Mortal Evolution State Cultivator. Gain 10 attribute points. Congratulations, host, for killing a level 6 Mortal Evolution State Cultivator. Gain 12 attribute points. Congratulations, host, for killing a level 5 Mortal Evolution State Cultivator. Gain 10 attribute points. After confirming the target he wanted to kill, Lin Yuan gained the initial approval of this body and became more and more compatible with it. He even opened the attribute panel. Although it was an independent system panel, with the system, it was equivalent to soaring. Me cheating? Super awesome. Looking at the prompts that were refreshed one after another by the system, Lin Yuan almost turned into a lemon spirit. Back then, he had risked his life to kill demonic beasts. How many attribute points did he get? As for the human model, a level 5 Mortal Evolution State could provide 10 attribute points? I'm jealous. Is this what a genius looks like? Mortal Evolution State, level 7? The confidence that the Flying Star sect's disciple had vanished in an instant as he stuttered. In an instant, she went from an ordinary person to a level 7 Mortal Evolution State. What terrifying aptitude was this? Even if he was placed in those super first-rate sects, he could be groomed as a young sect leader. Suddenly, he wasn't so confident in the Flying Star sect anymore. After all, the Flying Star sect was only a second-rate sect. Even a second-rate Lu Lin organization like the Red Dust Society didn't dare to mess with them, much less those stronger forces. If Guan Zhaoshan escaped Jilu City and gained the favor of a certain top sect, the entire Flying Star sect would be in trouble soon. No, he had to run. He had to report this to the sect and get rid of Guan Zhaoshan as soon as possible. Otherwise, everyone would die, and the entire Flying Star sect would die because of his big brother's greed. How dare you still want to run? I want you to help me cultivate. A cold light flashed in Lin Yuan's eyes. The Guan Shanxue in his hand whizzed out and pierced through the heart of the Feishing sect disciple. Congratulations, host, for killing a level 5 Mortal Evolution State Cultivator. Gained 3 attribute points. Lin Yuan. What the F*** CK? Lin Yuan was even more jealous. Even when his main body killed a spirit beast that was 1 level higher than him, he would only gain 3 to 5 attribute points. It was only when his cultivation level increased and he encountered stronger enemies that he gained more attribute points. But look at this human body. Was this something that a human could do? Killing a cultivator 2 levels lower than him and still gaining 3 attribute points. What would happen if he killed an enemy that was 1 level higher than him? If he had such aptitude, how could he still be stuck at level 8 Mountain Lord state? He would have taken off long ago. The Su Situ family's consecrated took 2 steps back and said in a trembling voice, "Young Lady Guan, there's no enmity between us. It's just that the Flying Star sect is too powerful. Even my master has to be wary of them. If we don't do anything, the Guan family's mistake will be a lesson to us. Please give me a chance. I promise I won't be your enemy again." He could tell that Guan Zhaoshan wasn't planning to let them go at all. However, the so-called King Ning was just a son of Lei Qiuming. The official position of Su Situ was also given by Lei Qiuming himself. This guy had established himself as an emperor in the south. In essence, he was still the former King Qingpeng. The officials and generals under him naturally wouldn't have the ability to go against a sect, even if it was just a second-rate sect. On the other hand, Guan Zhaoshan came from the Guan family, which was an old aristocratic family of the Shenwu dynasty. Hence, she had always listened to Lei Qiuming. If Lei Qiuming didn't stab her in the back, a mere Flying Star sect wouldn't be able to threaten the Guan family. That's good too. The better the aptitude of this body, the faster I can improve. 27 days is enough. Lin Yuan murmured to himself as he killed all the mercenaries and servants of the Su Situ family. After obtaining 7 attribute points, he began to distribute them. His chi also rose to level 8 of the mortal evolution state. He was only 1 step away from level 9. He took out Guan Shanxue from the body of the Flying Star sect's disciple. After making sure that there wasn't any blood on the blade, he hung Guan Shanxue on his back and walked out of this dark alley. That was something only criminals would do. Now that Lin Yuan had opened the system interface, he was still worried that he didn't kill enough people to overthrow the demon sect and stab the sky demon in the back. If the local government and the city guards wanted to find trouble with him, they could come. Killing one was a crime. Killing 10,000 was a hero. After experiencing the era of the spirit beast, Lin Yuan couldn't resonate with the life and death of humans anymore. After all, they were 2 completely different life forms. The difference between a mortal and a god was the difference between a mortal and an ant. When a mortal walked, would they care about how many ants they stepped on? Chapter 774. Moments later, Lin Yuan returned to the Red Dust Inn. He didn't know where the Flying Star sect was. He also didn't know where Lei Qiuming and the officials he appointed were. However, today's act of luring the snake out of its hole was pretty good. Although he hid his chi, 7 mortal evolution state cultivators with ill intentions followed him in, but he was the one who came out in the end. Those people in charge of watching him would definitely go in and investigate. Then, they would come to the same conclusion as the first cultivator. Lin Yuan had a great treasure on him. Although the profession of a refiner existed in the Tianwu continent, and when Lin Yuan first entered this world, he came into contact with many cultivators who had weapons with special powers. However, that was obviously just an example. In other words, only cultivators who often wandered on the line between life and death would not hesitate to buy or make special weapons at a high price. Although the southern part of the Shenwu dynasty was also close to the endless sea where spirit beasts ran rampant, it was basically safe as long as one didn't go out to sea. This was because not all sea demons had the ability to go on land. Even if they did, they wouldn't be able to unleash their full power. If such sea demons were caught, they would probably be cooked into delicious dishes that night. However, the Hunguan mountain range was different. Spirit items were abundant, but spirit beasts ran rampant. In the mountains and forests, spirit beasts had a lot more advantages than human cultivators. In the southern part of the sea, it wasn't difficult to deal with the sea demons that came ashore even without magic artifacts. However, at the northern frontier's Hunguan mountain range, who would dare to enter the Hunguan mountain range without a life-saving trump card? Forgery masters were very common in the north. There were quite a number of forgery masters in the Northern Frontier Ministry of Works, but in the south, forgery masters might not be able to do well. Without a few specialties, the southern forgery masters might not be able to do as well as ordinary blacksmiths. Although magic artifacts weren't popular in the South, no one could deny their value. If one had the chance to get it, it would probably cause a bloodbath in the southern cultivation realm. Ordinary magic artifacts were like this, let alone this one that Lin Yuan made them think existed. If an ordinary person could use it and crush 7 middle-stage mortal evolution state cultivators, wouldn't someone with a higher cultivation level be able to easily fight someone with a higher cultivation level? Of course, the strength of those stalkers was about the same as the 7 cultivators who had died in the alley. As long as they were not blinded by greed, they would not choose to kill Lin Yuan for the sake of seizing the treasure. After all, they had learned from their mistakes. The reason why Lin Yuan had returned to the Red Dust and was to make them completely give up on this idea. Although the treasures were good, one needed to be alive to enjoy them, right? After offending the Red Dust Tavern and hiding the matter of the treasure from the higher-ups, who could protect them? Therefore, their only choice was to report Lin Yuan's treasures to their superiors. By then, there would be no need to worry about no powerful figures appearing in Zhulu City. Even the first senior brother of the Flying Star sect might come personally. After all, there was no way he would give up a treasure and a furnace that could help him break through to the next realm. If they killed him, the mission would be considered half completed. Moreover, the information obtained from these higher-ups would always be more than the information obtained from the mouths of the people at the bottom. To put it bluntly, these people probably only knew who the target of the mission was. As for the specifics, the dead disciples of the Flying Star sect would probably be the limit of what they could get. They didn't have the right to know the deeper details. The moment he stepped into the Red Dust Inn, Lin Yuan immediately stepped forward. He frowned slightly and said in a deep voice, "Shopkeeper, why did you suddenly stop me?" The plump shopkeeper behind the counter, who always had a smile on his face like a Mithriya Buddha, chuckled as he stood up from his chair. He said, "Miss Guan, although the Red Dust Inn doesn't ask about the private matters of its customers, the trouble you're in is too great. I'm afraid the Red Dust Inn won't be able to protect you." "What do you mean?" Lin Yuan was slightly startled and said with a chuckle. This shopkeeper's eyes were so sharp. When Guan Zhaoshan stayed at the Red Dust Inn, she was disguised as a man. Her identity documents were all forged by the Guan family before they were destroyed. Even if they were taken to the government, they wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Yet this shopkeeper called her a miss. Just based on his eyesight, he probably wasn't someone easy to deal with. In addition, the shopkeeper's action to stop him was a test between cultivators. If he took another step forward, his right leg might have been directly crushed by the true energy the shopkeeper had set up beforehand. Lin Yuan's main body wouldn't be afraid, but this body was only at level 8 of the mortal evolution state. Even if he was a prodigy, he wouldn't be able to fight against someone at the peak stage of the airborne state. In a direct confrontation, Lin Yuan could instantly kill him. However, Lin Yuan could not foolishly take this kind of trick head-on, like how he controlled the demonic beast. Based on the strength of both sides, he did not even have the qualifications to exchange injuries, because the shopkeeper could also instantly kill his physical body. "Miss Guan, you're asking the obvious, aren't you?" The shopkeeper's eyes turned cold, and the smile on his face gradually disappeared. He said coldly, "When you went out, you were still an ordinary person who hadn't even touched the threshold of cultivation. Now, you're at the late stage of the mortal evolution state. Even if you hide your chi, you can't escape my eyes. I haven't asked who you are yet." As soon as he finished speaking, the servants in the inn drew their weapons one after another. The Red Dust Inn had always been like this. When there were guests, they were the servants who welcomed and sent them off. However, if someone came to cause trouble, they would turn into bandits who killed without blinking an eye. Lin Yuan's face sunk. The Red Dust Gang seemed to be stronger than he thought. His chi concealment technique was a means of a Mountain Lord-level monster. A mere airborne realm cultivator, even at the peak of the airborne realm, shouldn't be able to see through it. Either the shopkeeper had cultivated some secret technique, or he had a secret treasure that could observe other people's cultivation. Regardless of which it was, the Red Dust Gang's strength was probably much more powerful than it appeared on the surface. Even those first-rate sects and clans in the northern frontier might not have such a foundation. How could a mere quasi-first-rate force have such a secret technique or treasure. I've looked into it. Guan Zhaoshan has been frequently buying materials for sacrificial rituals. If I'm not mistaken, you're probably a wasteland god she summoned, who honored her last wish and took her body. This sort of thing is a taboo in the Red Dust Tavern, but I never thought that she would actually succeed. It's my dereliction of duty for not chasing her away in advance. That's why when you left this morning, although your eyes changed, I resisted the urge to speak. The shopkeeper waved his right hand, and a guandao whizzed out from the counter and landed in his hand. Chapter 775. However, since you've already left, why bother coming back? The shopkeeper swung the guandao in his hand and stroked his beard. He then said in a deep voice, "Our little inn is too small to accommodate a god like you. Please pack your things and leave this place. The Red Dust Society doesn't want to get involved in this trouble." Heh. Lin Yuan chuckled. It was not common for eyes to change color, but ordinary people would not think that a god had descended. After all, gods had not appeared in the eyes of the world for a long time. They would either guard the heaven's gate or hide in remote places like the endless sea. As for those gods, they did not have the means to descend and possess people. The Red Dust Society actually knew about the possession of gods. Immediately, Lin Yuan's assessment of the danger in his heart increased by a few levels. Some karma has already been involved. Don't you think it's a bit too ridiculous to want to get off halfway? With a light hook of his right hand, a chair slid behind him. Immediately, he sat down and said in a deep voice, "When I accepted Guan Zhaoshan's money, you guys didn't say that you couldn't handle this trouble. Now that things have gotten out of hand, you want to leave? Have you asked for my opinion?" Huh. With the emphasis of huh, the servants in the inn all knelt on the ground, their bodies trembling. Even the shopkeeper with the guandao almost broke his cultivation. The dragon might of a mountain lord was not something a mere mortal evolution state or airborne state cultivator could handle. That's why I'm asking, who are you? The shopkeeper's face kept trembling. He resisted the urge to kneel and asked. Well said, I'm just a god of the northern frontier, the Black Water Dragon King, Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan raised his hand and snapped his fingers, retracting the dragon might. The vertical line that appeared vaguely in his multicolored eyes disappeared. In an instant, the shopkeeper was like a mute who had eaten coptis. His expression was bitter, but he could not open his mouth. In the entire Shenwu dynasty, where was there a safer place than the northern frontier? The southern interest groups could not fight the Sky Demon. Even the previous confrontation was barely possible because of the Baixing Navy's troops at Wei River. Some time ago, the Baixing Navy was suddenly transferred, and the southern interest groups instantly collapsed. Not to mention fighting the Sky Demon. Even those demon sect members who were hibernating here easily defeated Lei Xiaoming and the others. However, the Northern Territory was an existence that could directly confront the Sky Demon Army with their chariots, horses, and cannons. Since the Red Dust Society knew about the arrival of the gods, it was impossible for them not to know about the existence of the Guardians of the Elysium. The heavenly demons were jumping around quite happily, but anyone with a little bit of knowledge knew that the heavenly demons were destined to not be able to cause much trouble. They were like grasshoppers jumping around after autumn, one day less and less. However, the northern frontier was different. As long as the northern frontier could survive the battle with the Sky Demon, it could directly replace the Shenwu dynasty in the future and become the seventh dynasty in the world. Who would be willing to offend the northern frontier? If the descending god was someone else, the Red Dust Society would not be afraid of revenge, whether they killed or banished the god. However, the one who came was Lin Yuan, this evil star. He immediately felt that it was impossible to get off the tiger. Thinking about the dragon might just now, the shopkeeper did not suspect Lin Yuan's identity. After all, the Red Dust Society was a forest organization that made a living in the south. It was not the first time they had encountered the monsters of the endless sea. The dragonmite was not unfamiliar to the Red Dust Society. If the one who emitted the dragonmite just now was not Lin Yuan, then the situation would be even worse. Including the 4 ancestral dragons, the dragon race of the 4 seas only had 6 dragon gods. Any one of them could directly destroy the Red Dust Society with a stomp of their foot. The consequences were much more serious than offending Lin Yuan of the northern frontier. I have eyes but failed to recognize Monty. I did not know that the Black Water Dragon King was here. Please forgive me for my previous offense. After all, the shopkeeper was an all-powerful figure in the forest. It was standard for him to know when to yield and when to stand tall. After weighing the difference between the Red Dust Society and the northern frontier, he decisively lowered his head and did not mention anything about banishing Lin Yuan. Then, the shopkeeper changed the topic and said again, I have only read about the gods descending in the ancient books of the Red Dust Society. I heard that those who offer their bodies to the gods will have the gods help them fulfill their last wishes. Otherwise, the gods will directly expel the gods' consciousness from their bodies. I wonder if the Red Dust Society can help with Miss Guan's last wishes? Lin Yuan was currently the most popular golden thigh. Even the Red Dust Society had no reason not to curry favor with him. Even if they could not obtain Lin Yuan's gift, they could still befriend Lin Yuan. In the future, when the northern frontier established a dynasty, the Red Dust Society would not be included in the hit list. The Red Dust Society knows a lot of secrets. That's good. Guan Zhaoshan chose the Red Dust Society to protect her when she was in trouble. This matter has karma with the Red Dust Society, so it's best if you are willing to help. Lin Yuan's eyes turned cold. He said slowly, the destruction of the Guan family should not be hidden from the eyes and ears of the Red Dust Society. I want you to kill everyone involved in this matter. Can you do it? The shopkeeper smiled bitterly and shook his head. He said bitterly, the Dragon King thinks too highly of the Red Dust Society. Yes, the Red Dust Society does know a lot of secrets, but that's because we have a long history, not because we are powerful. If you want us to deal with Lei Xiaoming's lackeys, there's no problem. However, the mastermind behind the destruction of the Guan family is the Flying Star Sect, a quasi-first-rate sect in the south. They have a Kongming realm ancestor and 3 half-step Kongming realm elders. It's said that the sect master is about to enter the Kongming realm. With such strength, even if the Supreme Dragon King comes out of seclusion, the Red Dust Society will not be able to deal with them. Lin Yuan was stunned again. The first time he was stunned was because the shopkeeper saw through his aura concealment. This time, he was stunned because of the Flying Star Sect's strength. 1 Kongming realm expert and 4 half-step Kongming realm experts. This kind of strength was enough to be listed as a super first-rate sect in the northern frontier. However, in the south it was only a quasi-first-rate sect. It seemed that the south, where the Guardians of the Elysium were active, was much more complicated than he thought. That's not a problem. I will take care of the Flying Star Sect. However, the rest of the trash can't be let go. This king can't be bothered to search house by house. Lin Yuan waved his hand lightly. Then he said word by word, do you understand this king's intentions? I will definitely do it. I will send a message to the Supreme Dragon King and have him do it himself. Under Lin Yuan's oppressive gaze, the shopkeeper trembled and nodded repeatedly. This king has always been fair in his rewards and punishments. The Red Dust Society will help you, and this king will not let you work for nothing. If there are any enemies of the Red Dust Society in Jilu City, you can take revenge. This king will take care of them for you. Lin Yuan slowly narrowed his eyes. When he finished speaking, a look of joy flashed across the shopkeeper's face. Chapter 776. 3 days later. Jilu City, Iron Hand Gang's headquarters. Congratulations, host. You have killed a level 7 mortal evolution state cultivator. Gained 5 attribute points. Congratulations, host. You have killed a level 5 mortal evolution state cultivator. Gained 3 attribute points. Congratulations, host. You have killed a level 1 airborne state cultivator. Gained 20 attribute points. One system notification after another flashed before his eyes, But Lin Yuan didn't feel anything. He just opened the system panel and distributed the attributes one by one. Although he was jealous, Lin Yuan was already used to the terrifying potential of this body. Moreover, this body would completely belong to him after the mission was completed. What was the point of being jealous? Congratulations, host. You have completed the breakthrough mission. Sweep the Lulin Lu Zhulu city. Mission reward: 50 attribute points and a third-rate mental cultivation method. Congratulations, host. You have successfully broken through to the level 1 of the airborne state. Please keep up the good work. The prompt of the completion of the breakthrough task was also refreshed. Lin Yuan exhaled a long breath of foul air and stood on the mountain of corpses and sea of blood with a carefree smile. He had his reasons for wanting to help the Red Dust Society get rid of their obstacles. The Flying Star sect didn't need to be completely wiped out. Clearly, it wasn't necessary to deal with the terrifying beings of the Empyrean and even half-step Empyrean states. After all, the mastermind behind the destruction of the Guan family was only the big brother of the Flying Star sect. As for them, they were referring to the southern interest groups led by Lei Qiuming. As mentioned before, with the strength of an old aristocratic family like the Guan family, even if they couldn't be compared to the Flying Star sect, once their foundation was revealed, even the Flying Star sect would have to think twice before acting. If it wasn't for Lei Qiuming's fear of the Guan family's strength, even if the Flying Star sect's eldest senior brother had evil thoughts, he wouldn't have dared to make a move on the Guan family's beloved daughter. Therefore, Guan Zhaoshan's hatred for the Flying Star sect couldn't be compared to the southern interest groups at all. This was the biggest difference between them. Otherwise, they could be summed up with one word. Then again, the strength of the Flying Star sect's eldest senior brother should not be underestimated. After all, the Flying Star sect could be considered a super force in the northern frontier. In the cultivation world where the strong preyed on the weak, those who could firmly suppress the other disciples of the Flying Star sect and become the eldest senior brother naturally did not rely on their qualifications. After all, on the path of cultivation, the one who reached the top was the teacher was not just a saying. If you met someone younger than you, but with a higher cultivation base, you had to obediently address them as senior brother. Otherwise, you would not even know how you died. The man was at least at the pinnacle of the airborne realm, but it was apparent that he was capable of more than that. Furthermore, if the senior brother of the Flying Star sect were to personally come to Zhulu City to capture Guan Zhaoshan, there would have been seniors of considerable powers accompanying him. In the worst-case scenario, the skills that Lin Yuan could use would definitely be used to greet that senior. Against that senior, there was a high chance that he could only rely on his own cultivation. If it had been an ordinary cultivator, they would probably have had no choice but to sit and wait for death or pray that things wouldn't be that bad. But Lin Yuan was different. He was a man with cheats. He used the Red Dust Society's name to clean up the Lulin forces that were entrenched in Zhulu City. On the surface, the Red Dust Society would naturally help him clean up the mess. While earning the Red Dust Society's favor, he could also openly kill people in Zhulu City to earn attribute points. Furthermore, he had to be more ruthless when dealing with the Flying Star sect. After all, even if he could easily take the life of the chief disciple of the Flying Star sect, it would not make the Flying Star sect fear him. Instead, it would make the Flying Star sect hate him. When the time came, there would be endless trouble that would be enough to make Lin Yuan suffer. He wanted to get rid of the evil cult and stab the Sky Demon Corps in the back. If he was held back by the Flying Star sect, things would be bad. As such, it was best to kill a powerful elder of the Flying Star sect to show his fangs. That way, the Flying Star sect would have to consider the necessity of making a mortal enemy of an extraordinary cultivator if they wanted to take revenge. From today onward, the Iron Palm clan will be removed from Zhulu City. A member of the Red Dust Society announced the destruction of the Iron Palm clan with a smile. At the same time, the second dragon head of the Red Dust Society, who had already arrived in Zhulu City, was slightly stunned. He looked at the figure standing on the mountain of corpses and opened his mouth, but no words came out. It's just a few Lulin gangs. Their hands are stained with the blood of innocent people. Second Dragon Head used to be a constable of the Shinwu dynasty. You don't have to grieve for these people and have evil intentions towards me, do you? The Red Dust Society's power is not something that these simple local bullies can compare to. Moreover, we're on the same boat now, aren't we? Unknowingly, Lin Yuan had already passed by him. He stretched out his hand and patted his shoulder, leaving a slender, bloody handprint. Then he strode away. Simple? Second Dragonhead felt that he could hardly breathe. The Iron Palm clan could barely be considered a third-rate Lulin gang. They were nothing to the Red Dust Society, but to a branch in Jilu City, they were an opponent that they had nothing to fear. Almost all the members of the Iron Palm clan were at the middle stage of the mortal evolution state, and the leader of the Iron Palm clan was at the early stage of the airborne realm. Such a force was not considered strong in Jilu City. At the very least, the shopkeeper of Jilu City could deal with them. However, there was an alliance between the various gangs. Once the shopkeeper of Jilu City made a move, he would have to face at least 5 airborne realm cultivators. However, Lin Yuan's move would not attract the attention of the other gangs. In other words, they would not treat him as if he was facing a great enemy. Therefore, under Lin Yuan's thunderous means, the various gangs were taken down one by one. In total, nearly 10,000 people died in Lin Yuan's hands. This directly made some of the lesser forces who were secretly clamoring to rise to the top not even dare to think about dividing up the territory. At present, the Red Dust Society could be said to be the strongest among the Lulin gang in Jilu City. In Lin Yuan's words, such actions could only be described as simple. Then again, after seeing Lin Yuan's means, it was indeed very difficult for him to have any ill intentions toward Lin Yuan. Even without the identity of the Black Water Dragon King, such a murderous god was not someone the Red Dust Society wanted to mess with. Lin Yuan did not have such thoughts. He just felt a little helpless. Over 10,000 cultivators were killed by him, and a large number of attribute points were wasted. After all, before the breakthrough mission was completed, the attribute points accumulated to the upper limit would not continue to increase. Otherwise, his current strength would not be as simple as being at the airborne realm level 1. What was more troublesome was that he had already killed all the people in Jilu City. If he were to kill the other Lulin gang, the Red Dust Society might not be able to handle it. If he were to do something wrong, terrifying Lulin gang cultivators might come. If he did not make a move against the Lulin gang, the other forces would either have clans or sects behind them. They were not people to be trampled on. The progress of his strength seemed to have stagnated. Chapter 777. Jilu City was not considered a small city. After all, a power like the Red Dust Assembly would disdain to set up a branch in a third-rate or even unrated human gathering place. In the entire South, Jilu City was considered a second-rate city. A step further, and it would be a first-rate city. In the South, which had always been attacked by the sea demons, there was only one first-rate city, and it was close to the Central Plains. A city like this would definitely have a huge flow of people, so the speed at which news spread could be said to be terrifying. Within 3 days, Lin Yuan had used the name of the Red Dust Assembly to wipe out almost all the Lulin forces in Jilu City. Very quickly, the news spread to other cities, instantly attracting the attention of countless people. This kind of thing that could change the situation of an entire region with one's own strength. The most recent was probably the northern frontier's Black Jiao's destruction of Mountain Blocking City, thus establishing the path to dominating the north. That was enough to be recorded in the history books, the Berserk Python Calamity. And this time, this woman called Guan Zhaoshan had slaughtered her way through the Lulin forces in Jilu City. Other than the Red Dust Assembly, almost all the famous forces in the underworld had been wiped out, leaving only the small fries in Jilu City. Although it could not be compared to the Berserk Python Calamity in the north, the title of Killing Demon was indeed placed in front of Guan Zhaoshan's name. Although the Lulin cultivators were also cultivators, compared to ordinary cultivators from aristocratic families or sects, they had a heavier habit of the underworld. For example, in Lin Yuan's previous life in Japan, if one did not have a certain status in the underworld, even tattoos were not allowed. In the Tiamu continent, this practice was even heavier. The Lulin cultivators rarely had nicknames. Once they had a nickname, they would show their signboard in the underworld, and the leaders of ordinary forces would have to treat them with respect. As for those Lulin cultivators who did not have the strength to give themselves nicknames, they usually did not have a good ending. For example, in the ancient underworld of Lin Yuan's previous life, people who gave themselves nicknames such as Invincible Divine Fists were basically people who claimed their nicknames today and might die tomorrow in the Tiamu continent. This time, although the nickname Grim Demon was forcibly given to Lin Yuan by busybodies, there was no lack of Lulin forces behind the scenes pushing the matter. The Greenwood faction that could establish their territory in a place like Zhilu City was basically an outsider. They were just a branch of the Red Dust faction or a branch of a certain faction. Naturally, the headquarters behind these people wouldn't just watch the Red Dust faction monopolize Zhilu City. But there was nothing they could do. They couldn't find fault with the Red Dust Society. This was because the Red Dust Union could have done things according to the rules when it came to clearing out the forest in deer-chasing city. In advance, they would openly hand over letters of challenge to the various Lulin factions, stating that if the newcomer wanted to be promoted, they would have to stain their hands with blood as proof of their allegiance. This was basically a rule that had been passed down for a long time in the Lulin factions. If you're not convinced, you can find a newcomer from your own clan who hasn't taken the position yet to come out and kick the Red Dust Society's ass. But this obviously wasn't realistic. Because the Guan clan had already been destroyed, it wasn't hard to find information on Guan Zhaoshan. With a bit of effort, they could find Guan Zhaoshan's previous records. Therefore, Guan Zhaoshan was indeed a newcomer with a clean background. But for a newcomer to challenge the various factions and win, the success rate was pitifully low. With this kind of strength, talent, and a clean background, why would he want to join a Lulin faction? Wouldn't it be better to find a sect to join? Now that the Xinwu dynasty had collapsed and Lei Qiuming's whereabouts were unknown, although the demon sect's disciples had secretly infiltrated, it wasn't that easy to swallow up the alliance formed by the various clans and sects in the south. Currently, the clans and sects were the ones in charge in the south. After joining these factions, they could do whatever they wanted, even if they did some dirty business, as long as they didn't go too far and made it known to everyone. Not only would the local government not pursue the matter, they would even help cover it up. Finding a genius comparable to Guan Zhaoshan to kick the Red Dust Society's ass could no longer be described as difficult. It could even be described as impossible. However, although the Red Dust Society's actions were in accordance with the rules of the Lulin faction, it wasn't flawless. After all, Guan Zhaoshan was still a newcomer. Even if she succeeded, she would only have the right to speak in the Red Dust Society. In the big circle of the Lulin faction, Guan Zhaoshan was still a nobody. As long as they put in some effort and gave her a nickname, then according to the rules of the Jianghu, any Lulin faction cultivator who wasn't satisfied with Guan Zhaoshan's nickname of Grim Demon could come and challenge her. As long as the gap between the two sides wasn't a big realm, then it was in accordance with the rules. While the undercurrent of the Lulin faction was surging in the south, Zhilu City, Red Dust Inn. Second Dragon Head smiled bitterly with an apologetic face. He lowered his voice and said, "Dragon King, I'm really sorry. We didn't think this through before." The Supreme Dragon Head didn't expect that the Lulin faction would be so shameless as to use such underhanded means to kill you, a genius belonging to the Red Dust Society. At this point, he paused and said with a sincere face, "What the Supreme Dragon Head means is that if you avoid the battle, although you'll lose some face, there won't be any other way to deal with you. We still have a big plan and don't have the time to play with those Lulin faction who are only thinking about revenge." Lin Yuan looked at Second Dragon Head meaningfully. His right hand kept tapping lightly on the back of the chair. He didn't believe a single word of this nonsense. They were all foxes from the same mountain. Why did they have to talk about strange stories? Those Lulin faction could think of a way to deal with him so quickly. How could Red Dust Taoist, who was known to be able to suppress the Lulin faction in the south and intimidate the other Lulin faction in seclusion all year round, not think of this? However, after Second Dragon Head said this, he really did have Lin Yuan's best interests at heart. After all, if Lin Yuan avoided the battle, it would be equivalent to admitting defeat to the entire Lulin faction in the south. He would lose face and his nickname. However, it was different for the Red Dust Society. If Lin Yuan admitted defeat or lost the battle, the Red Dust Society would have to obediently spit out all the territories and profits they had taken. They would also have to compensate each faction with a large sum of resources as a sign of defeat. For the Red Dust Society, who knew the inner workings of grim demon Guanzhao, this suggestion was a huge loss. Lin Yuan lowered his head. What he lost was Guan Zhaoshan's face. After all, it was just a shell. If it weren't for his outstanding talent, Lin Yuan wouldn't have cared. However, the Red Dust Society definitely didn't know how special Guan Zhaoshan's shell was to Lin Yuan, so they wouldn't consider it. Speaking of which, Lin Yuan lowered his head and lost Guan Zhaoshan's face. At the same time, not only would the Red Dust Society have to spit out the territories they had recently taken, they would also have to pay a large sum of money. Chapter 778. This amount of gold and silver was definitely not a small amount. After all, Lin Yuan had killed nearly 10,000 members of the Forest Alliance, including 5 who were in the airborne realm. It would have cost a lot to train such combat forces. Even if the Red Dust Society did not foot the entire bill, they would have to pay at least 1/10 of the resources to those Forest Alliance forces. Even with the Red Dust Society's size, paying out such a huge amount of resources was enough to hurt them. That was why Lin Yuan's eyes became meaningful when he thought about the whole thing. Are you guys betting that I'll definitely accept the challenge? Lin Yuan had a playful smile on his face as he asked softly. In truth, it was not difficult to guess what the Red Dust Society was thinking after thinking about it calmly. After all, Lin Yuan had always been domineering toward other forces ever since he came into being. The only time he bowed his head was when he was dealing with the Guardian of Heaven's Gate. However, that level of information was already a secret among secrets. If the Red Dust Society knew about it, it could only mean that there was at least a Guardian of Heaven's Gate behind the Red Dust Society. Would Lin Yuan, who had always been domineering, bow his head to a group of airborne realm cultivators of the Forest Alliance? The answer was hard to say, but there was a high chance that he would not. Even if Lin Yuan had guessed the Red Dust Society's plot, it would still be the same. After all, he was a king. A king was not someone who would bow his head. Even if he did, it would be for the benefit of the entire force. The current situation was not one where a king had to bow his head. As for what would happen if Lin Yuan really did bow his head, the Red Dust Society was working for Lin Yuan. Now that they had paid a huge price, Lin Yuan would have no choice but to face the Red Dust Society with guilt when they met in the future. Even if the 7th dynasty was established, the Red Dust Society would be able to stay at the top of the Southern Forest Alliance for at least 10 years, let alone 100 years. As for the North, the Red Dust Society did not dare to have such extravagant hopes. That was the territory of the Monster Emperor Association, and there was no need to talk about who was behind the Association of Monster Emperors. Snatching food from Lin Yuan, wasn't that just courting death? What happened to the remaining members of the Jiao family was enough to sound the alarm for these cultivators who were active in the dark side of the world. If they stood against Lin Yuan, once they lost, they would have no way out. If they were valuable, they would have a chance to be a dog. If they weren't, they could refer to those aristocratic families that had been destroyed in the north. After being exposed by Lin Yuan, the second dragon head's expression only changed slightly. He quickly nodded and said indifferently, "We are indeed betting that the Dragon King will not avoid the challenge. After all, from your previous behavior of not leaving anyone alive once you attacked, I reckon that you are actually very interested in killing people. I think that you have no reason to refuse these heads that are delivered to your door. Is this your idea, or Taoist red dust's?" Lin Yuan tilted his head and looked at the heavy traffic on the street below. He sized up the second dragon head from the corner of his eyes, still with a meaningful smile on his lips. The question he asked was like a soul interrogation. The second dragon head's expression changed several times. It only took him a few seconds to go from a slight frown to a face full of indifference. It was like a famous face change in a Sichuan opera. The Supreme Dragon Head has set off personally to track down the whereabouts of Lei Qiuming and the others. He is busy with official business and has no time to deal with the affairs of Zhilu City. So, the second Dragon Head replied with an indifferent expression. Since they had already shed all pretenses, there was no need to keep up the pretense. You're really not a good dog. Lin Yuan laughed, and the smile on his face no longer had that meaningful look. In the afternoon of the same day, the news that the grim demon, Guan Zhaoxin, had accepted the challenge and directly issued a challenge to all the cultivators of the southern forest. This news spread like wildfire from Zhilu City. Other than the news that shook the entire southern forest, which even attracted the attention of many sects and forces, there was another piece of news that only spread within the Red Dust Society. The second Dragon Head had died. The second Dragon Head, who was at the peak of the airborne realm and only one step away from the heavenly strength realm, was severely injured by a single slash after a secret meeting with Guan Zhaoxin at the Red Dust Tavern. The two sides then fought and almost tore down half of the tavern. In the end, Guan Zhaoxin paid the price of minor injuries to behead the second Dragon Head. The death of the second Dragon Head, who had been in charge of the Red Dust Society together with Taoist Red Dust, was a big deal. After all, Taoist Red Dust was only half a step away from the Kongming realm. He had been in seclusion for many years, so the second Dragon Head was basically in charge of all the affairs of the Red Dust Society. The former Supreme Dragon Head had become an existence used by the Red Dust Society to intimidate other forces. The second Dragon Head was more like the president of the Red Dust Society. After several purges, there were actually more people who were loyal to the second Dragon Head than to Taoist Red Dust. There was no lack of secret meetings and declarations in the Red Dust Society to punish Guan Zhaoxin. However, to the surprise of the Southern Lulin Society, Guan Zhaoxin, who killed the second Dragon Head, was not promoted according to the rules of the Lulin Society, nor was he punished by the Red Dust Society. Instead, he continued to stay at the Red Dust Tavern as if he was an outsider. The Red Dust Society of Zhilu City did not do anything at all. It was as if the one who died was not their second Dragon Head, but an unrelated stranger. In truth, Lin Yuan's identity was also a secret in the Red Dust Society. Other than the members of the Red Dust Society of Zhilu City, who came into contact with Lin Yuan, only Taoist Red Dust and the second Dragon Head knew about him. The other members of the Red Dust Society really thought that Guan Zhaoxin was one of them. All of the clamor came to an abrupt end when the news of the second Dragon Head's death reached Taoist Red Dust's ears. That was because the Supreme Dragon Head, who had become a weapon of deterrence instead of a living person, had only said one thing: it's good that he's dead. All of the clamor came to an abrupt end. Now that the second Dragon Head was dead, Taoist Red Dust naturally had the final say in the Red Dust Society. What else could they say if their boss said it was good that the second Dragon Head had died? They could not go against the grim demon and Old Ding, who had been in the limelight recently, for the sake of a dead man. Could they? Of course, there were still people who wanted to avenge the second Dragon Head. However, the saying that the tea cooled down after the person left did not happen to everyone. Even the Lulin Society, which was an incomparably filthy existence behind the scenes, had no lack of loyal and righteous people. It was just that in this circle, evil people occupied the majority. However, before these people could complete their secret plans, most of them disappeared without a trace. Those who remained were scared out of their wits. They packed up their valuables and fled to the Azure River Dynasty, not daring to stay in the Red Dust Society's territory any longer. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that the Supreme Dragon Head wanted to reclaim his authority and began to clean up the cultivators who were loyal to the second Dragon Head. Chapter 779. The next day, early in the morning, it's the fifth day. Lin Yuan ended his cross-legged state of cultivation and let out a long sigh. His cultivation had reached level 3 of the airborne realm. For an ordinary person who had just embarked on the path of cultivation, such a speed was terrifying. Even someone as powerful as Lin Yuan had to turn into a lemon spirit again. How many attribute points would a full cycle of demonic power in his body add without the green leaf water lotus? It didn't even reach 1 point. How many attribute points would a full cycle of spiritual qi in Guan Zhaoshan's body add? In the beginning, he was not used to the meridians of the human body, adding 1 to 3 attribute points per cycle. After getting used to the purifying haze of the human body, the speed of the cycle became faster, adding 5 to 8 attribute points per cycle. In other words, even if this body were to just sit cross-legged and cultivate, the efficiency would be comparable to the attribute points Lin Yuan's original body gained from fighting bloody battles back when he was at the Wisdom Realm. In 4 days, he went from an ordinary person to level 3 of the Airborne Realm, which was what cultivators called the peak of the early phase of the Airborne Realm. If such a speed of cultivation were to spread, others would not think of him as a monster. They would think that he was the reincarnation of some powerful being who came to Zhilu City and found something left behind in his previous life, making rapid progress from there. There would be olive branches, but there would also be greedy covetousness. Lin Yuan did not have such a hidden danger before, because he was lucky to get a tiger's skin. Forces at the level of the ancient demon court had been wiped out in the long river of history, but their power was still there. Even someone as powerful as the guardian of the celestial gate dared not offend them. Therefore, those greedy people only dared to dream about it. Moreover, the heritage left behind by monsters might not be suitable for humans. However, Guan Zhaoshan's body was different. He could not say that this body was also the successor of the ancient demon court, could he? Even if he said that and people believed him, it would not stop those people who were blinded by greed, who would not want an opportunity that could make one's cultivation soar. It was especially so for those old people who would never let go of such a fat piece of meat like Guan Zhaoshan. That was probably the trouble of being happy. If one's cultivation rose too quickly, it would attract countless people who did not know what was good for them. For example, "Get out here," Lin Yuan said indifferently. His white right hand was already on the hilt of Guan Shanchue's sword. For a bladesman, it was fundamental to not let the saber leave their body. For most fanatical bladesmen, the saber in their hands was more important than their lives. While Lin Yuan was not a true swordsman, being at the 3rd level of the Airborne Realm was not enough for him to be able to sleep soundly in Zhilu City without any worries. His strongest weapon was to feed Guan Shanxue with his blood or a day and night without using any of the system's skills. "Your grim demon Guan Zhaoshan?" Following a question that sounded like a statement, a slender, white figure appeared in the room. Shua! Without any hesitation, Lin Yuan's Guan Shanxue slashed out. The difference between his own realm and the opponent's realm allowed him to know the specific effects of the opponent's attribute panel once the Eye of God was activated. Guan Shanxue did not have any special abilities and only had a few unorthodox martial arts. Even if he was an average Airborne Realm cultivator, or even an Airborne Realm cultivator with no future, he might not be able to make a breakthrough to the Heavenly Strength Realm even if he died. A piece of trash that was not qualified to make Lin Yuan use his blade nurturing technique. But it was good to use him as a warm-up. "You have a bad temper that doesn't match your pretty face." The man in white smiled and flipped his right hand. An iron folding fan appeared in his hand, and he casually went to meet Guan Shanxue. Clang! Sparks flew when the weapons collided. The man in white's face stiffened slightly. He looked at the iron folding fan, which was completely covered in frost, and the frost that began to spread to his right hand. He cried out, "A magic item?" Lin Yuan remained silent. He drew his sword and swung it again, going straight for the man's face. At this moment, Lin Yuan's face changed slightly. When Guan Shanxue was still 3 centimeters away from the man in white's face, he abruptly stopped the momentum of the sword. He tapped his foot and directly broke out of the window. His figure was as fast as a ghost. After a few breaths, Lin Yuan had already appeared in a mansion. Lin Yuan quickly walked into the study and tapped a bookshelf several times in a row according to the rhythm in his memory. Accompanied by a soft, crisp sound, a secret door opened from the ground not far away. Immediately, Lin Yuan stepped into it, and with another crisp sound of the secret door closing, his whole person was hidden in the darkness. This was a safe house. It was made by the embroidered uniform guards. Back then, Qin Yu, Zhao Guanchong, and the others were attached to the south to carry out the mission. Naturally, it was impossible for them to directly kill their way out in the south like Taishan. Before they left, the embroidered uniform guards quickly operated. Each Chiliarch bought mansions and built secret passages and shelters. Except for the parts that they were responsible for, the safe houses that the other Chiliarchies were responsible for were all kept secret. Even if Lin Yuan's enemies knew that he was hiding in the safe house, unless they could capture all the embroidered uniform guards who were responsible for building the safe house, they could only try their luck. Of course, capturing them was one thing. If they hoped that the embroidered uniform guards created by Lin Yuan would betray him, they would have to rely on the taboo mind control ability. A simple interrogation by torture was meaningless. Moreover, the underground shelter of the safe house also needed to be opened according to a specific rhythm. If the rhythm was wrong, then the entrance would be directly blown up. Not only would it waste time to clean it up, but it would also give a warning to those hiding underground. At the same time, there were secret passages leading to other shelters and secret exits underground, including food, water, and other preparations. It was almost to the extreme of caution. However, Lin Yuan didn't expect that when Qin Yu and the others were in the south, they didn't use the safe house. After it was built, it had always been in an abandoned state. Except for the embroidered uniform guards who lurked in the south, occasionally coming back to exchange information and clean up, these safe houses were basically not used. It could be said that since the safe house was built, the first person to use the underground shelter was actually Lin Yuan himself, who was in charge of the northern frontier, remotely controlling the overall situation. After a cup of tea, Endless Sea, Willow Stone Sea. Your summoning disrupted my plan. I need a reasonable explanation. Lin Yuan's main body slowly opened his eyes, looked at the puppet body that released him, and said coldly, although the other party was just a strand of divine sense, other than not being able to exert 100% of its strength, it was almost no different from him. Logically speaking, if nothing major happened, it would not release its main body and use divine sense to communicate with him to call him back. Chapter 780. The puppet maintained its cold appearance and said indifferently, "What you're worried about didn't happen." However, the higher-ups of the Sea Demon Guild that you asked Cyrus to contact arrived at the Willowstone region yesterday. He's probably an ancestral demon powerhouse and could tell that I'm just a clone at a glance. He also told me that if you're sincere about cooperating, you should use your real body to communicate with him instead of using a clone to brush him off. That's all? Lin Yuan's eyelids twitched slightly as he resisted the urge to curse. If it wasn't for the fact that the other party was also him, he would have killed him. The white-robed man from before was most likely not from an aristocratic family or sect. After all, Guan Zhaoshan's resume was there, and the Flying Star sect was obviously standing on the opposite side. Even if Guan Zhaoshan's aptitude was noticed, those sects would have to think twice whether they coveted those rumored treasures, inheritances, or simply wanted to accept Guan Zhaoshan as their disciple. The Flying Star sect was not to be trifled with. A Kongming realm ancestor, 3 half-step Kongming realm elders, and a sect master who could break through to the Kongming realm at any time. This did not include the hidden forces that might exist. Just on paper, their strength was so strong. Without a certain foundation, they would not dare to come into contact with the hot potato that was Guan Zhaoshan. Even if they did come into contact, the person who came should have a high status in the sect. If they were not sincere, they would not have gained Guan Zhaoshan's trust, let alone the Flying Star sect. As for the white-robed man, whether it was in terms of strength or cultivation method, they could be said to be trash among trash. It was even inferior to the mental cultivation method that came with the third-rate martial arts, the Thousand Mountain Saber technique. This mental cultivation method was, after all, a way to circulate qi to support the saber technique. It was not impossible to use it for cultivation, but breaking through to the Heaven Star realm was the limit. a sect that could nurture a Kongming realm cultivator. Even an outer disciple would not cultivate such a low-level cultivation method. A sect of that level would not send a servant disciple to come in contact with someone like Guan Zhaoxin, who could stir up a storm in the south, right? Therefore, that guy was most likely a Lulin cultivator. It was equivalent to giving attribute points and reputation to him. But because of such a small matter, he let him go just like that. He did not know if that guy would flee at the sight of him when he returned. My situation is special after all. Even if I wanted to explain, he probably wouldn't believe me. The puppet shrugged helplessly and shook its head. So, for the sake of that plan, I can only summon you back. Normally speaking, even if one had reached the ancestral demon realm, it was impossible for one's divine sense to be completely independent. That was because that was the authority of a god. As mentioned before, Lin Yuan built some temples of the Black Water Dragon King in the north and attached a wisp of his divine thoughts to the Dragon King sculptures in those temples. By listening to the prayers of believers and receiving incense offerings, these divine thoughts slowly grew. If the time was long enough, these divine thoughts could even break away from Lin Yuan and become an independent existence. At the current stage, it was impossible for these will to exist independently. However, after they returned to the main body and separated into different objects, they could barely become clones with the same memories and personality as Lin Yuan. However, they were not independent existences. Lin Yuan was still the main body and would not give birth to their own will. However, they all had the same way of thinking as Lin Yuan. Under various circumstances, they would make the same choice as Lin Yuan's main body. Therefore, Lin Yuan was at ease to leave Willow Rock Waters to it. He descended into Guan Zhaoxin's body and prepared to move around in the south. Because in a sense, it was no different from Lin Yuan himself being in charge of the Lusher Sea area. It was just that it was an inferior product that couldn't do anything. Take me to see that guy. Lin Yuan spoke indifferently. The dissatisfaction in his tone had been restrained. Since he was already here, he might as well finish his business before leaving. He should be able to make it in time. However, the Siren Guild had yet to establish a new branch in Willow Rock Waters. After all, in a sense, the Siren Guild was only a loose guild system. Without absolute benefits, the Siren Guild's upper echelons could not even command their members at will. Therefore, they did not have much say. Want to establish a branch in different waters? If it were the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, they could just give the order and be done with it. However, even if the Siren Guild was not inferior to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, they still had to carefully manage their relationship with the rulers of the various waters. Only then could they proceed with establishing a branch. Some weak and remote rulers of the waters would definitely have to be thick-skinned and carefully curry favor with the Siren Guild to see if they could promote the development of the waters through the Siren Guild's branch. However, the Willow Rock Waters was a region with local specialties, a good geographical location, and decent strength. Naturally, the relationship between the two sides would have to be transferred. Therefore, when Lin Yuan's main body returned, the Siren Guild's upper echelon naturally had no reason to continue being pretentious. He quickly settled the matter at hand and appeared in front of Lin Yuan under Flood Dragon One's lead. Blackwater Dragon King, it's an honor to meet you at last. The Siren Guild's upper echelon, who looked like a crab boss, cupped his crab pincers at Lin Yuan and mimicked a human speech to Lin Yuan. However, due to the accent, the phrase, "It's an honor to meet you at last," sounded like, raise a dog, letting out a long sigh. Lin Yuan resisted the urge to correct the other party's pronunciation. He said in a deep voice, "The reason I invited you here this time is that we, the Willow Rock Waters, wish to establish a deeper level of cooperation with the Siren Guild. We're not like the other waters that only allow your guild to establish a branch here and let everything run its own course. If this matter is successful, it will be greatly beneficial to both you and me. I still don't know what your guild's attitude is. The guild will definitely have no problem with establishing a branch. After all, this is our livelihood." The crab boss smiled and suddenly changed the topic. However, Since the Dragon King mentioned a deeper level of cooperation, I would like to ask the Dragon King to elaborate as this matter is beyond my authority. I need to know the details first before I can make my own judgment and send a message to the headquarters so that the management of the headquarters can convene a meeting to discuss this matter. A slippery crab. Lin Yuan quickly made a judgment. His position in the Wu Jinhai was very awkward. He had the dragon's bloodline in his body, but he was disliked by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. He did not join the evil dragon faction and instead wanted to form his own faction. Anyone who got involved with him at this time might have to face the wrath of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas in the future. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.